Nice. Now we are live. Let me get the acetone out of the way. My friend, that's still in the way. Hello, YouTube. Hello, hello, hello. Ah, I have Mr. Stringer, and I'm not gonna start now, even if I sleep. If I sleep. Hello. Are we back? Hi, Nat. Oh my God, long time no see. Hello. Okay, we are live, and we have sound, I think. Yeah, I am gonna hold it because, yes. Perfect. Now let's share this. And this is chapter 44 of Two's Company, but they want a crowd. Um, yeah, chapter 44, familiar faces and same places, which if you missed that, that is a reference to chapter 1, new spaces and new faces. I see what you did there, Toss. So yeah, familiar faces, places. For a second, I thought that was like a later chapter, but no, no, that is chapter 1. Bleh. Yeah, and it gives the same summary. Yeah, no, it's Welp. We're finally here. I really wasn't expecting this to be the finale. You tweeted that, and I was like, whoa, whoa. I thought there were 2 more chapters, and then someone in my tweets was like, there's going to be an epilogue, and I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I feel like I remember you saying that. I just bloop 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 forgot about it for a second. So yeah, need a reminder. Need a reminder. But yeah, well, we're finally here. It took us a while, but somehow we made it to the end. And no, I'm not crying. You're crying. Okay, fine. Maybe I'm crying a little, and that's okay. It is going to be the 1 year anniversary of this of Two's Company in 2 days on the 7th of July. If you missed that, so it somehow feels like years ago and just yesterday at the same time. Yeah. It would be very fun if you release the epilogue on the anniversary. Not to pressure you or anything, but that would be really fun. I'm not crying. Someone's just cutting oranges. Exactly. You were? Yay. Toss knocking out a fully finished fic. Dang, bro. This might be. No, that's a lie. This is definitely like the longest long fic I've read while it was still releasing, and like I've seen it through to the end. But yeah. Um the first longest the first yes, the first longest long fic. The first long fic that is like over half a million words that I've like read through to the end while it was still going. Let's say that. Yeah. Anyway. 1 year later. Well, this is the finale. 1 year later, Rumi squinted against the late afternoon light filtering through her windshield, one hand loosely guiding the wheel as she slowed down along the row of storefronts. The signs blurred together at first glance. Bright colors, mismatched fonts, names that meant nothing until she focused hard enough to read them. Which one did you say it was again? She asked, tilting her phone closer to her ear as she leaned forward slightly, like that would somehow help her see better. Chinu groaned loudly through the speaker, the sound crackling just enough to make her pull the phone back with a small wince. I gave you the address. What more do you want from me? Well, I'm driving right now. Ruby Shopback. I'm not crying. Well, I'm driving right now, Rumi shot back. Unless you'd like me to crash into a lamppost, checking my phone isn't really an option. That's why I called you, to be a good friend and help me out. But no, you want to start sassing me instead. So, again, if you get the reference, this is referencing chapter 1. Sassing you? Ginu sounded genuinely offended, which only made her lips twitch. Yes, sassing me. It's something you do a lot, actually. You're saying I sass you? Ginu. There was a beat of silence, followed by a dramatic sigh. I just don't believe this. Sorry, wait. I just don't believe this alternate reality you've created where I'm somehow the problem. Hmm. I think if we reviewed the footage, we'd find a very different story. Tell me where the store is. Fine. It's called Capes and Center Toes. Rumi blinked. What? Capes and Center Toes. That's a terrible name. I know. Who named it that? I specifically said not to ask me questions about the weird name. Rumi laughed under her breath. Her gaze continued scanning the buildings. Then she spotted it. A narrow storefront tucked between a coffee shop and a nail salon. Capes and Center Toes. There you go. I found it. Congratulations. Thank you, Ginu. Glad my services are finally appreciated. Barely. The offended noise he made nearly made her laugh again. Okay, bye. Bye. The line clicked off, and for a moment, the car felt quieter than it had a second ago. Rumi let out a small breath she hadn't realized she was holding, easing into a parking space before shifting into park. She didn't get out right away. Instead, she leaned back into the seat, the engine humming softly beneath her, and let her gaze settle on the shop ahead. Her phone stayed in her hand, still warm from the call, her thumb hovering just above the screen like it didn't quite know where to go next. Her thumb moved before she could think too much about it, tapping on Celine's contact. The ringing filled the car almost immediately, soft but too loud in the quiet. Rumi's fingers curled into the fabric of her shirt, catching along the seam near the hem as her thumb brushed over it again and again, a small, grounding motion she didn't fully register. With each passing second, something in her chest began to tighten, her thoughts already slipping somewhere she didn't want them to go. It happened every time, every single time. No matter how many calls were answered, no matter how many times everything turned out fine, her mind still reached for the worst first, like it didn't trust anything else to come. What if something happened? What if they found out? What if she pushed too hard, called too often, made herself into something that could be traced, something that could be used? What if the fourth ring echoed, stretching just a little too long? Rumi pressed her lips together, worrying at the edge of her bottom lip as the thoughts kept building, layering over each other in ways that felt impossible to separate from memory. The Hyun family had made Myung disappear, and now Celine was pulling at all of it, piece by piece, dragging everything into the light with a kind of determination that made Rumi's chest ache. She was proud of her. God, she was. But the fear sat just as deep, tangled up with it, impossible to pull apart, because she had already lived through what it meant to lose someone to that kind of power once before. It didn't feel like a distant possibility. It felt like something waiting to repeat itself, just wearing a different face this time. The line finally clicked. Hello? Celine's voice came through softer than usual, rough at the edges like it had been pulled from sleep or exhaustion, and something in Rumi immediately gave way at the sound of it. The tension in her shoulders loosened, and her grip on her shirt eased as she let out a breath. She hadn't even realized how tense she'd been. Hey, Rumi said, her voice gentler. Just checking in. Another long night? There was a quiet hum on the other end, followed by a soft exhale. Yeah, Celine admitted. Another step closer, though. Rumi nodded instinctively, even though she couldn't see it. Her gaze drifted back up to the shop in front of her, but her focus stayed somewhere else entirely. I know, just. Her grip shifted slightly on the phone, fingers tightening before she forced them to relax again. Take care of yourself, okay? Her voice softened without her meaning it to, something fragile slipping through the edges. Oh, yeah. Is that Rumi saying it? Sorry. Yeah, just take care of yourself, okay? That's Rumi. Her voice softened without her meaning it to, something fragile slipping through the edges. Please don't disappear too. Please don't make me lose another person. Please answer tomorrow and the day after that. Just keep answering. She swallowed it all down before it could reach her mouth. Celine let out a quiet huff, something almost amused woven into it despite the exhaustion. Rumi, she said, her voice slow and worn, but warm in a way that settled somewhere deep. I promise you, I can take care of myself. I know that, Rumi replied, though it came out quieter than she intended. Her gaze dropped to her lap as her fingers found the hem of her shirt again, absent-mindedly tracing the seam. I just want to make sure you're okay. I am. It came easily, almost too easily, and Rumi recognized it for what it was. Not a lie, not exactly, but not the full truth either. Still, she let it rest where it landed, choosing not to pull at it. A second later, Celine yawned, the sound quiet but unmistakable. Rumi's expression softened instantly, the tension in her chest easing to something gentler. Yeah, okay, that's my cue, she said under her breath, a small hint of a smile slipping in. You need sleep. I'm fine, Celine mumbled, though the slight drag in her voice betrayed her. No, that didn't sound convincing at all. A faint laugh came through the line, quieter now, but real. You're fussing again. I am not fussing. You called me just to check on me. That is not. Rumi stopped herself, pressing her lips together as her smile grew despite herself. Okay, maybe a little, but only because you make it very easy to worry about you. Rumi. Celine. There was a beat, and then Celine exhaled softly. The sound fawned in a way that made something in Rumi's chest loosen. Go on, Celine said, voice gentler now. Tell me what else I'm doing wrong. Rumi huffed quietly, her smile lingering as she leaned back into the seat. She straightened, almost forgetting the main reason she called. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. She shifted, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear. My graduation is in 2 weeks. Will you? Yes. The answer came so quickly it caught her off guard. I'll be there, Rumi, Celine added, softer this time, like it was something obvious. How could I miss it? Something in Rumi's chest eased at that, a quiet tension she hadn't fully acknowledged loosening all at once. She hadn't realized she needed to hear that so badly. Right. She let out a small breath, a quiet laugh slipping in with it. Just making sure. Her eyes drifted toward the shop window again, though her focus stayed somewhere else entirely, lingering on the reassurance, on the certainty, on the certainty in Celine's voice. It felt steady, safe. Okay, she continued after a moment, her voice gentler now. That's all I wanted to call you for. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Mm-hmm. I love you. Rumi's breath caught just slightly. It always did that, no matter how many times she heard it. Her fingers stilled against her shirt. She nodded instinctively, even though Celine couldn't see it, her voice coming out quieter, more careful. I love you too. There was a small chuckle on the other end, fond and knowing, like she could hear everything Rumi didn't say. Bye, Rumi. Bye. The line clicked, and the quiet rushed back in. For a moment, Rumi just sat there, phone still pressed loosely against her ear before she lowered it into her lap. A soft sigh left her as she leaned back against the seat, her gaze unfocused as she stared ahead. The tension in her chest had eased, but it hadn't disappeared entirely. It never really did. It just shifted, became something quieter, something she could carry. After a second, she turned her head toward the shop again, this time actually seeing it, the glass windows, the lettering, the faint reflection of her own car staring back at her. Capes and center toes. A small, almost disbelieving smile tugged at her lips. Graduation. The word still felt strange when she tried to hold on to it for too long. It kind of felt like something meant for a version of herself she hadn't fully caught up to. But it was real. 2 weeks. Her fingers curled loosely around her phone as she sat up, taking a steady breath before reaching for the door handle. For once, the future didn't feel as distant as it used to, just close enough to touch. I love the Celine Rumi arc in Two's Company, like especially like experiencing it through like one whole year, like as it developed. It's just very special. Because like Celine really started off as that like very very extremely strict parent in like kind of a bad way, and then like they really connected after that and like realized all the like all the trauma around their relationship, and I think it's done so well. So this is really lovely to see. Chichi, I love Rumi, guys. Oh my god, I wish you could tip the writer. I wish the writer had a Kofi. Hi, cheese. Throwing toss a $5 tip. The metaphorical $5 tip. I wish Toss had her Kofi. Yeah. I'll throw cheese at Toss. It's okay. Wait, one more sip. Isn't that the kudos button? It is. If you want, you should also bookmark it. I mean, it's bookmarked on mine, obviously. You should bookmark it and leave a comment. Leave a comment. Yeah. You think it's not bookmarked? Huh? Just saying, because some people don't bookmark it. Just saying. But comments are important. Okay. 12 days until graduation. Um, you have to nub your fingers. Come on, nub it. I don't even know what that means. Rumi shot back, her voice climbing despite herself. Zoe leaned in from the side, barely holding back a laugh. He means, oh, sorry, that was Ginu. You have to nub your fingers. Come on, nub it. Okay. He means bend it, Rumi. Just bend it. That did not make it better. Rumi stared at the small metal piece in her grip, brows knitting together as she adjusted her hold, like maybe there was some trick to it she just wasn't seeing. It didn't look bendable. It didn't feel bendable. It felt like the kind of thing that would sooner snap her fingers in half before giving in. Still, she squared her shoulders slightly, inhaling as she tightened her grip. Use all your force, Mira chimed in, already invested, raising her fists like she was gearing up for a fight. Pretend you're crushing the head of your enemy. Zoe shot her a look. That's a little extreme. Mira shrugged. Motivation. Honestly, Zoe added, turning back to Rumi with a grin. Yeah, go with that, Rumi. Rumi huffed out a breath, somewhere between disbelief and determination, and then pushed. At first, nothing happened. Her fingers tightened, tendons pulling taut beneath her skin as she tried to force the metal to give, her jaw clenching as she poured more effort into it. The resistance didn't budge, not even slightly, and for a second she wondered if this was some kind of joke, if the entire point was just to watch people struggle. I'm trying, she gritted out, her voice strained as she adjusted her grip again, thumbs pressing harder, wrists angling for leverage. Still nothing. Her face flushed deeper by the second, heat creeping up her neck as she pushed harder, stubbornness settling in where doubt had been. She wasn't going to lose to a stupid piece of metal, even if her fingers felt like they were about to snap. There was a sharp pulse of pressure, something almost painful shooting through her knuckles as she forced more strength into it, like she had the brief, vivid thought that she was 1 second away from watching bone push through her skin. Rumi, your face, Zoe said somewhere beside her, half laughing, half concerned. Don't distract her, Mira added, completely serious. She's in the zone. Rumi made a small, frustrated sound under her breath and pushed again, every muscle in her hands tightening until it felt like they might lock that way permanently. And then, finally, something gave. It was small at first, barely noticeable, but she felt it. A shift, a slight bend under her grip that sent a jolt of disbelief straight through her. Oh, wait, keep going, Mira urged immediately. Rumi didn't need to be told twice. She leaned into it, breath hitching as she forced the metal further, the resistance fighting her every inch of the way until a soft click. The scale in front of her ticked up the last few marks, the indicator light flickering before turning green. Congratulations, you did it, the man behind the station said, clapping politely. Okay, so it was just a random man. I thought it was Genu one. So it was like he, okay. Congratulations, you did, the man behind the station said. Rumi released the device immediately, like it had burned her, stumbling back a step as her hands dropped to her sides. For a second, she just stared at them, flexing her fingers slowly as the ache set in, deep and throbbing beneath her skin. She could feel her pulse in every joint. That, she sniffed softly, wincing as she curled her fingers again. Hurt. Zoe and Mira were on her instantly. Let me see, Zoe said, already reaching her hands, her touch gentle as she turned them over, thumbs brushing light across her knuckles. You did good, Mira added, her voice softer now as she stepped closer, carefully pressing along Rumi's fingers like she was checking for damage. That thing's not easy to bend. Most people can't get it that far. Rumi let out a small breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, the tension easing slightly under their touch. Zoe leaned in and pressed a quick kiss to her cheek, still holding one of her hands. It's beautiful, she said, holding up the bent piece with a grin. You did amazing, Rumi. Rumi couldn't help the small smile that followed, even through the lingering ache. I think I need to ice my fingers after that, she muttered, shaking her hand slightly like that would help. And I don't ever want to step foot in this part of the place again. Fair, Mira hummed, already turning and lightly nudging her forward. We'll avoid the hand destroying exhibits from now on. Zoe giggled, bumping her elbow gently against Rumi's arm as they started walking. I told you they make you do weird things for magnets. Rumi let out a quiet huff, shaking her head, though her smile lingered as she flexed her fingers one more time. Weird, she agreed, glancing down at her hands, still warm and sore, is definitely one way to put it. Interesting. Interesting. Magnet. Interesting. Huh. Wait, what are you saying? I wish I read the chapter before the stream for my usual cryptic comments. Oh, another reference. Wait, they make you do weird things for magnets. I'm blanking. I'm blanking. Hand destroying exhibits. I am blanking, girl. I don't remember. Ah! um, you have to nub your fingers. Come on, nub it. We're sure this is where we end our lives with TC. Okay, maybe I'll remember later. Okay, I'll keep going. And then fake metal or whatever, and it really freaking hurt. Her voice drifting somewhere between complaint and disbelief as she pressed the blade carefully into the wood. Thin, pale curls gathered at the edge of the block, falling away in soft spirals with each controlled movement. Oh wow, they're doing their little wood carving. Even thinking about it made her fingers ache again. She flexed them slightly around the handle just to make sure everything still worked the way it was supposed to before shaking the thought off and refocusing. Behind her, nimble fingers continued weaving through her hair with slow, practiced ease. The gentle pull at her scalp, the steady rhythm of it, made something in her shoulders loosen without her noticing at first. She sank a little further back into the couch, the cushion dipping beneath her weight as she adjusted, her head tilting instinctively to give Celine better access. Her eyes stayed on the wood, following the shape she was carving, but her body had already softened into the moment. Celine only hummed in response to her story, low and quiet, just enough to let Rumi know she was listening. It was a small sound, but Rumi found herself leaning into it anyway. Dude, Celine, you should have seen the one where we had to blow that bubble to a certain size to get the bubble magnet. Zoe cut in, flopping back dramatically against the couch. Her voice was bright with leftover excitement, laughter threading through every word. It was insane. Rumi blew one so big it popped all over her face like a cartoon. I have to show you the picture. Rumi's head snapped up immediately, heat rushing to her face before she could stop it. Don't show her, she protested, shifting around just enough to glare at Zoe. That was embarrassing, and there were people watching. Too late, Zoe sang, already halfway leaning over, phone in hand. Rumi barely had time to react before Celine shifted slightly behind her, her own phone appearing in her hand as she glanced at the screen Zoe was showing her. A quiet, amused sound slipped from her, softer than Zoe's laughter, but just as telling. Celine, don't take pictures of it, Rumi warned, turning more fully now, her expression caught somewhere between horror and disbelief. Celine didn't even look remotely guilty. I need them, she said simply, already snapping a couple photos before setting her phone back down. For memories. Rumi stared at her for a second, completely betrayed. Betrayed! Then she huffed, turning back around with a quiet grumble under her breath, though the corners of her mouth betrayed her just slightly as she picked the blade back up. The room settled after that, the earlier noise fading into something quieter, more comfortable. The soft drag of the blade against wood filled the space, steady and grounding, while Celine's fingers returned to her hair like they'd never left, sectioning, smoothing, weaving. Because it's 1 year later and her hair is long again, right? Your hair has gotten longer surprisingly fast, Celine noted after a moment, her tone casual but observant, like she'd been tracking it without saying anything. Rumi smiled faintly, eyes still on her work. Blessed with good genes, I guess. A soft huff of amusement brushed past her ear. Clearly. There was a small pause, fingers still moving, before Celine added, Are you going to cut it again? Rumi slowed, the blade pausing mid motion as she considered it. For a long time, cutting it had felt necessary, like shedding something, like control. Now, it didn't feel like that anymore. She shook her head slightly. Probably not, she said after a second, her voice quieter, more thoughtful. Maybe trims, but I don't think I want to do a big chop again. Her thumb brushed lightly over the carved surface, feeling the contrast between smooth grain and rough edges. As weird as it sounds, she added, a small, almost sheepish smile tugging at her lips. I kind of miss having it long. The words felt strange leaving her mouth, like admitting something about a version of herself she hadn't been sure she'd ever want back. Celine hummed again, softer this time. That's not strange, she said, her voice gentler now. You had long hair for most of your life. It makes sense. Rumi didn't respond right away, but something in her chest eased at that, at how easily it was accepted, how it didn't have to be explained or justified. A second later, Celine's hand stilled, fingers giving one final light adjustment. There, she murmured. All done. Rumi blinked, the moment settling around her as she instinctively reached up, fingertips brushing over her hair. She pushed herself right, reaching into her pocket for her phone. Flipping the camera open, she tilted her head slightly, angling it until the braid came into view. It rested just past her shoulder, neat and soft, woven tightly enough to hold, but loose enough to feel natural. A few strands framed her face where they'd slipped free, catching the light. She smiled without thinking. Thank you, she said, glancing back over her shoulder. Celine waved it off with a small flick of her hand, already settling back into the couch. You're welcome. Rumi lingered there for a second longer, studying the braid through the screen like she was trying to memorize it, before lowering her phone and shifting closer. She climbed onto the couch and slid over until she was right beside Celine, arms wrapping around her without hesitation. Celine didn't stiffen, didn't pause. Her arms came up around Rumi almost immediately, settling against her back with a quiet familiarity that made something warm bloom in Rumi's chest. She relaxed into it, cheek pressing lightly against Celine's shoulder, letting herself sink to the warmth of it. It was different. Not just the hug itself, but the way Celine held her. Looser, easier, like she wasn't bracing for anything, like she knew how to stay. For movie night? Rumi murmured after a moment, her voice soft against the fabric of Celine's hoodie. Zoe got us onesies to wear. She shifted slightly, just enough to glance up at her. Would you wear it? Celine pulled back just enough to look at her properly, one brow already raised in quiet suspicion. That depends, she said slowly. Is it offensively bright? Rumi giggled under her breath, shaking her head. No, I promise. Celine studied her for a second longer, like she was weighing how much she trusted that statement, before exhaling lightly. Fine, as long as it's tolerable. That was as close to enthusiasm as she was going to get. Rumi beamed anyway. Wait, they're so freaking cute. They're so freaking cute. I'm gonna be sick. Zoe is already like daughter-in-law. Hi, Rachel. She might have left. What horrors has Zoe got for them? There's a lot of them in this chapter. Oh my god. Toss has done amazing work and now they can rest, and we need to thank them properly for the amazing brick soup. I'm already melting. I'm already melting from the heat. Oh, oh, oh! You're making a pun. Sorry, I took that. I took that too literally. You're doing because you're cheese. I see. Nice. I feel so emotional just because it's the last chapter. Yeah. Well, Part 2 is tomorrow. I'm not finishing this today, so we get to enjoy it a little longer. Rumi carefully pulled the hood up over her head. There, she said, adjusting it slightly so the soft ears sat properly. See? Not so bad. Celine glanced down at herself. Oh my god. Little burp. Celine glanced down at herself, fingers brushing over the plush fabric of the brown bear onesie like she wasn't entirely convinced yet. Someone please draw Celine in a brown bear onesie. Thank you. I suppose, she admitted after a second, her tone measured. It could have been worse. Yeah, Zoe chimed in from the side, already grinning. She jerked her thumb toward the kitchen. You could have gotten Mira's. I heard that, Mira called immediately, her voice flat but not sharp, as she stepped into the room balancing 4 mugs in her hands. Rumi looked over and had to bite back a laugh. Mira's onesie was aggressively bright, neon blue, hood up, the same soft ears perched on top like they belonged there. It didn't match her at all, and somehow that made it better. She set the mugs down on the table with careful precision before turning back toward the kitchen for the popcorn, like the outfit wasn't worth acknowledging. Once she returned, the lights clicking off as she crossed the room. Across the room. The space dimmed, the TV casting a low glow over everything as Mira dropped down onto the couch next to Zoe and Rumi, grabbing her mug. Hot cocoa, she muttered. Zoe lit up immediately. Ooh, thanks, Mir. She reached for her mug, grabbing a handful of popcorn on the way and shoving it into her mouth without hesitation. Rumi smiled faintly at that, reaching forward to grab one of the remaining mugs. The warmth seeped through the ceramic into her fingers as she turned, offering it to Celine first. Celine inclined her head slightly as she took it. Thank you, Mira. Mira glanced over at her. It wasn't a long look, just a brief flicker of attention, but it wasn't guarded the way it used to be. Her fingers shifted slightly against her own cup, a small, unconscious movement before she gave a short nod. Hmm. And that was it. No tension, no edge, just acceptance in the quiet way Mira tended to offer it. Smiled faintly at that, lifting her mug and taking a careful sip. The cocoa was warm without being too hot, sweet in a way that lingered at the back of her tongue. She let it sit there for a second before swallowing, her shoulders sinking a little further into the couch. Beside her, Zoe had already grabbed the remote, flipping through options with quick, impatient taps. Wait, guys! She suddenly sat up straighter, eyes lighting up as she leaned toward the screen. A new CCCHARH movie came out. We have to watch it. Mira didn't even look up. She just dragged a hand slowly down her face. Not this again. Rumi hopped quietly into her mug, already bracing for whatever argument, or lack of one, was about to follow. What is CC? Celine's voice cut in, hesitant and slightly puzzled. She tilted her head just enough that Rumi could see the faint crease between her brows. I don't think I've heard of that. Zoe froze, then her head snapped around so fast it was almost concerning. You've never seen CCCHARH? She demanded, her voice bordering on scandalized. Celine blinked once. No. Zoe stared at her for half a second longer, like she was trying to process how that was even possible before she clutched the remote tighter. It's amazing, she declared, already turning back to the TV. It's like, okay, it's about this cursor. Oh my god! Oh my god! Throwback! This whole chapter is going to be like throwback after throwback, and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, I have forgotten about that one. Are they gonna try hot wings again? It's about this cursed ceramic clown that haunts a retirement home, and it sounds weird, but actually really good. It's my comfort movie. Mira made a quiet, pained noise somewhere between a groan and a sigh. Okay, Zoe continued, completely ignoring her. Change of plans. We're starting with the first one since Celine's never seen it. Rumi let out a soft laugh at that, glancing over just in time to see Mira tip her head back dramatically against the couch, like she was already resigning herself to it. And still, she didn't move away. If anything, she leaned more firmly into Zoe's side. Zoe immediately took advantage of that, wrapping an arm around her without even looking, pulling her in with that same easy familiarity. The movie started before she could think too much about it, the opening credits flickering across the screen in soft light. Ruby shifted slightly where she sat, her fingers absent-mindedly catching on the soft fabric of Celine's onesie. She tugged at it lightly, more out of habit than intention. Celine responded without looking, her arm lifting just enough to make space. Rumi didn't hesitate. She slid down almost immediately, settling with an ease that still surprised her if she thought about it too long. Her head came to rest against Celine's thigh, the position fitting like it had belonged there. She stretched her legs out across the rest of the couch, draping them loosely over Mira and Zoe. Neither of them questioned it. Zoe just shifted slightly to make room, attention already locked onto the screen, while Mira adjusted her grip on her mug without comment, her knee pressing lightly against Rumi's calf in a way that was grounding more than anything else. Rumi let out a slow breath, her body sinking fully into the arrangement. Above her, she felt Celine's hand settle against her arm. Not heavy, not tentative, just there. Fingers brushing lightly over the soft fur of her onesie, moving in small, absent patterns that matched the quiet rhythm of the opening. Rumi's eyes drifted toward the screen, though her focus wasn't entirely there yet. And for a brief moment, the thought slipped in, uninvited but not unwelcome. There was a time she wouldn't have been she wouldn't have been able to do this with Celine, wouldn't have let herself, would have stayed upright, alert, just a little distant from everything, even if she didn't mean to. Now she was practically sprawled across her like it was the most natural thing in the world, and she didn't pull away. Rumi's fingers curled slightly against her sleeve as that realization settled, something soft and steady anchoring itself in her chest. Above her, Celine's hand continued its slow, absent movement. On the screen, the movie's tone shifted, the first hints of something eerie creeping into the soundtrack. Rumi smiled faintly to herself, eyes finally focusing. Yeah, Celine was definitely in for a surprise. He's so cute. I'm gonna get so emotional. I'm gonna be so normal about this, guys. Ugh. Water, water, water. Water, 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 water. Wishing Artie was on the mini service server because the sap I'm cooking up over this is crazy. I'm gonna eat TC. What's the mini server? I'm barely in the Discord anymore. I've been very anti-Discord lately. I just can't do it. The AI overview is killing me. It's a server I made for the main people I talk to. Oh, that's cute. That's cute. Let's keep going. 9 days until graduation. The knight's hand. Ooh, this is italicized. Okay. Oh. The knight's hand settled at the small of her back, firm enough to steady her, yet warm enough to make her acutely aware of every place their bodies nearly met. Heat bled through the thin barrier of silk and armor alike, a quiet contradiction, grounding, and yet undoing her all at once. Their breaths fell into rhythm without effort, slow and deliberate, as though her own heartbeat had begun to dictate the pace of the world around them. Do you place your trust in me, princess, my princess? The question did not feel like one. Artemisia's grip tightened around the knight's forearm, her fingers pressing into steel and leather as if she might anchor herself there. Her knuckles paled, though whether from tension or something far more fragile, she could not say. Her brilliant blue eyes, unyielding, steadfast to a fault, lifted to meet the knight's, searching the familiar warmth in them, the quiet devotion that slipped through only in moments like this. Moments where duty softened at the edges, where something deeper dared to exist. This knight had sworn herself to crown and kingdom, had knelt before gilded halls and vowed to shield her from every blade, every betrayal the world could offer. And yet, Artemisia had long since come to understand that such vows were not what bound her here. Not truly. I do, she whispered, the words leaving her not as a command, nor as something offered in submission, but as something far more dangerous, something honest, unguarded, entirely her own. The knight's hand shifted at her back, fingers gliding upward with a familiarity that should not have existed, yet did. Silk yielded beneath her touch as easily as breath parted with the same precision she wielded a sword, and Artemisia felt the notion like a spark drawn slowly along her spine. A sharp breath escaped her before she could stop it, her knees threatening to give beneath the sudden rush of sensation, of awareness, of something she had no language for. Saints above. Rumi? I don't know who's that. Um, Rumi? Yeah, that's Zoe. Rumi jolted so violently, her knees smacked against the underside of her desk. Shit, she hissed under her breath, the sharp sting snapping her fully out of it as her hands scrambled across the keyboard. the, la- the, the laptop slammed shut with a little more focus than intended, as if she hadn't been sitting there writing the most unhinged medieval smut known to man. Yes, let's go. Oh my god. Oh, I love her so much. Of course she is. Heat rushed to her face all at once, fast and unforgiving. She turned in her chair too quickly, the motion just shy of unnatural, eyes wide in a way she knew was not convincing anyone. Yeah? Her voice caught as she cleared her throat, trying again with something steadier, something normal. Zoe? Zoe stood in the doorway, one shoulder resting lightly against the frame, her brows drawn together just enough to suggest she'd noticed something. Not everything. God, hopefully not everything, but enough. I was just wondering if you've seen Nim? Nim. Right. A normal question. A normal, harmless question. Not at all a lifeline being handed to her in the middle of a complete internal collapse. Oh, no, she said, glancing around her room as if the cat might materialize out of thin air to save her. Nope, not in here. Zoe nodded, slow, thoughtful. Okay. And she didn't leave. Give me a second, let me do it. And she didn't leave. Rumi could feel it, the way Zoe's eyes lingered, the quiet assessment happening in real time. It made the back of her neck warm. She swallowed, trying to ignore the lingering warmth in her face, the very vivid memory of what had been on her screen not even seconds ago. Don't even think about it. Don't. Need something else? Rumi asked, aiming for casual and landing somewhere just shy of strained. Zoe's eyes narrowed slightly, not accusatory, just curious in that way that made everything worse. Like she wasn't sure yet, but she was thinking about it. No, she said slowly, though her gaze flicked briefly toward the laptop. Just, you closed that really fast. Rumi's stomach dropped. Something important on there? Important. Yes, extremely important. life altering, even. The kind of importance she would absolutely never, under any circumstances, allow another living soul to witness. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. She was distantly aware that she probably looked like she was imitating a fish. No, Rumi blurted finally, the word cracking just enough to betray her. Just, testing how fast I can close my laptop when someone walks into my room. There was a pause. Oh, Zoe's expression did not change. Not even a little. She turned slowly and began to retreat, stepping back into the hallway with all the exaggerated patience of someone who was absolutely not convinced. Want me to close the door? She asked over her shoulder. Ruby nodded a little too quickly. Yeah, sure. Zoe pulled the door shut behind her with a soft click. Rumi sat there for half a second. Then she exhaled, long and quiet, her shoulders dropping as she pressed her palms briefly against her eyes. Oh my God. She was never recovering from that. The door creaked open again. Rumi's head snapped up. Zoe leaned back in, a grin already spreading across her face. You were writing fanfiction, weren't you? Rumi let her head fall forward into her hands with a soft, defeated groan. I was writing fanfiction. I knew it! Could I maybe, possibly, get a small peek, perchance? No! Aww. What fanfiction is it? They're so sillies. They're so sillies. I love them. Hi, Austin. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to read the new TC chapter. I can't accept an end. Well, it's fun. It's really fun right now. Yeah, that was lovely. That was so delightful. 6 days until graduation. Wait, before that, let me look at some comments. Oh, let me also try to come over here. Oh my God. My stupid stand. Okay. Okay. Me and Broccoli miss listening to streams together. She wanted me to pop in and say hi at least. Like I said, tomorrow's stream is going to be earlier, so she might be able to join. Hashtag best friends. You guys are cute. 6 days until graduation. Do you feel like you accomplished everything? The question settled into the space between them, carried lightly on the steady breeze that moved through the field, tugging the ends of Rumi's hair, brushing cool against her skin. Her palms pressed more firmly into the grass beside her as she stared up at the sky, wide and uninterrupted above them. For a moment, she just let herself sit with it. Accomplished everything. The word everything felt too big to answer quickly. No, she said finally, her voice thoughtful rather than uncertain. Not really. She shifted slightly onto one elbow, eyes still tracing something distant in the sky as she searched for the right way to explain it. I think there is still more after this, she continued, slower now, more sure of what she meant as she said it. Or I hope there is, anyway. Because stopping here, this being it, didn't feel right. Beside her, Chinu nodded, his gaze fixed somewhere out across the open field. I get that, he said simply. Rumi turned her head then, studying him for a second. She swallowed lightly before asking, What about you? Her voice softened just a fraction. Do you think you accomplished everything? Chinu huffed quietly, like the idea itself amused him. Nah, he said, without hesitation. Then he shifted, rolling slightly onto his back as he lifted his hand into the air, angling it just enough for the sunlight to catch. But for right now, the silver band on his finger gleamed, subtle but unmistakable. Hello? Bro! Our guys got engaged. Our boys got engaged. I don't know if they're engaged, but there's something. They might have gotten like boyfriend engaged, you know what I mean? That's incredible. Oh my god. Good for them. Good for them. I think I got everything I need. Rumi blinked once, then her brain caught up. Her head snapped toward him, and in the next second, she was pushing herself upright, grabbing his hand without ceremony and yanking it closer to her face. She knew? It's a promise ring, he said immediately, already grinning like he'd been waiting for that exact reaction. Don't freak out, or do, because it's pretty amazing. Let's go, Yowie. Rumi shot him a sharp look, though her grip didn't loosen as she turned his hand slightly, inspecting it from another angle. I'm not freaking out, she muttered, even as her eyebrows lifted higher. I'm processing. The metal caught the light again, clean and simple, but intentional enough that it made something in her chest twist in a way she couldn't immediately name. Wow, she said after a second, glancing up at him. You guys moved fast. Chinu scoffed, dropping his head back against the grass. Oh, please, he shot back. You lesbians move way faster. You literally got one like a few months in. Rumi immediately looked offended. 8 months is not a few months, she said, narrowing her eyes as she let go of his hand. That's practically long term. He let out a laugh at that, and despite herself, Rumi felt one tug up too, the earlier weight of the conversation loosening just a little. She shoved his shoulder. I can't believe it, she added, shaking her head, though there was something lighter in her tone now. Gino rolled dramatically across the grass, committing fully to the bit. What? He said, throwing an arm over his eyes. That I'm in a very happy, thriving relationship. Rumi snorted, crossing her arms loosely as she looked down at him. No, she said, that you guys are copycats with the promise rings. Chinu moved his arm just enough to peer at her, completely unimpressed. Promise rings existed before you were born, Rumi. Still copying us, she shot back immediately, lifting her chin slightly. He let out a quiet, disbelieving breath, dropping his arm back over his face. I genuinely don't know how you managed to get anyone to date you, he muttered. Rumi's head snapped toward him. I heard that. She lunged for him without warning, but he was already moving, laughing as he rolled away from her reach. It's the truth, he called over her shoulder. Gino! I think they're my favorite Ruginu like dynamic in anything. I'll just say it. Not that there's a lot of major competition. There's some. But I really like them. Gay and slay. Literally me and my gay bestie. Everyone in this house gay as hell, and we love that for them. As it should be. The lesbians is crazy. I love them. They're so fun. Okay. They're like perfectly silly. 3 days until graduation. Are you sure that feels good? Rumi lay on her side, half tangled in the sheets, her cheek pressed into the pillow as she watched them with a wary sort of focus, like she was trying to decide if she needed to intervene or just let whatever this was happen. Mira was face down on the bed, Oh, sorry, that was Zoe. Are you sure that feels good? Mira was face down on the bed, cheeks smushed into the pillow, glasses abandoned somewhere off to the side, her body going rigid for a moment before a strange sound slipped out of her. It started as a grunt, something tense and braced, but softened, melted into a reluctant sigh. She gave a small, somewhat pained nod, which to Rumi was not reassuring in the slightest. Zoe, meanwhile, wobbled a little as she carefully stepped along Mira's back. I need someone to do that to me so bad. Her bare feet pressing down in steady shifts of her weight with exaggerated concentration. She moved slowly, testing her balance, her expressions somewhere between focused and delighted, like she was treating this as both a task and a game. For a split second, Rumi had the absurd thought that it looked like one of those people crushing grapes with their feet. Except in this case, the grapes were Mira. And Mira was enduring it. It does, she managed after a moment, her voice muffled by the pillow. Sort of. Her fingers curled into the fabric beneath her, gripping tightly as Zoe shifted again. And this time, the reaction was immediate. A sharp hiss cut through the room. Too much weight on my shoulders, Zoe. Sorry. Zoe winced immediately, shifting her stance with a small wobble before redistributing her weight more carefully. I got it. I got it. Just tell me if it's too much. Rumi's brows knit together slightly as she watched. Mira had mentioned the back pain a few times recently, never in a way that made it sound serious, but enough that Rumi had noticed, enough that this solution felt questionable at best. She shifted slightly under the sheets, propping her head up just a bit more as she studied the way Zoe adjusted her footing, the way Mira's shoulders rose and fell with each breath. Logically, it didn't make sense. More pressure on an already strained area should, theoretically, make it worse. That was just basic reasoning. But Mira had insisted they'd done this before, more than once, like it was some established, trusted method. Still, it felt a little outdated. Rumi's nose scrunched faintly, still watching, still unconvinced, still, even as she made a quiet mental note to look it up later. Maybe there were actual techniques, or stretches, or something that didn't involve balancing your full body weight on someone's spine. Right there, Zoe. Yeah, that's the spot. Mira's voice dropped, tension in her voice easing just slightly. A soft exhale followed, almost a sigh, and Ruby felt her brows knit together just a little more. Fuck. Ruby blinked. Okay, maybe it was working. At least a little. Mira's body seemed to sink deeper into the mattress, though Rumi couldn't tell if it was intentional or if she was just being compressed into it. Rumi let her head fall back against the pillow, watching the scene play out with a quieter sort of curiosity now. The rhythm of it, Zoe stepping, adjusting, Mira reacting, became almost predictable after a while, something steady and oddly domestic in its own way. It went on for a bit longer before Zoe finally stepped off carefully, one foot at a time, making sure not to jostle her too much. Then she promptly flopped onto the middle of the bed with a soft huff, arms splaying out as she caught her breath. Mira turned over slowly, wincing just slightly before settling on her back. Thanks, she said, her voice quieter now, but noticeably more relaxed. Zoe rolled onto her side without hesitation and leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her lips like it was the most natural follow up in the world. Of course! The ease of it made something warm settle in Rumi's chest again. Zoe pulled back with a small hum, rolling onto her back as she stretched out across the bed. I'm kind of an expert at backstepping, she added, a grin tugging at her lips as she turned her head toward Rumi. When I was little, me and my siblings had to do it for my mom all the time. It was actually really fun. Rumi smiled at that. the image coming together easily in her mind. Smaller, younger Zoe, probably just as energetic, clamoring around without a second thought. I bet, she murmured, her voice soft. She shifted closer without really thinking about it, closing the small space between them as she adjusted the sheets around her legs. Is she coming? Is she coming to the graduation? Mira's voice came from just behind Zoe, her chin resting lightly on her shoulder as she leaned over her with an easy familiarity. I haven't seen her since that time she visited, Mira continued, her tone thoughtful. That was like before Rumi moved in, wasn't it? She tipped her head slightly then, looking toward Rumi with a small, curious smile. You haven't officially met Zoe's mom, huh? Rumi let out a soft, quiet laugh, shaking her head as she shifted slightly against the pillows. Not really, she admitted. I remember you talking to her when you were in the hospital for your arm, and I think I saw her for like 2 seconds. The memory was hazy at best, more impression than detail. All I really remember is that she looked a lot like Zoe. Mira hummed at that, clearly amused. Oh, they're basically identical, she said easily. Like, it's actually a little freaky. Only difference is her mom's a bit more centered than this one's energetic ass. She punctuated the statement with a light slap on Zoe's arm, the kind that was more habit than anything else, affection disguised as teasing. And normally that would have gotten an immediate reaction. But Zoe didn't respond, hadn't even reacted. Rumi's gaze shifted toward her, her brows knitting just slightly. Zoe? She prompted gently, nudging her knee against hers beneath the blankets. Her posture had changed. Zoe's shoulders had drawn in just a little, her usual openness folding inward. Her hands, which had been relaxed moments ago, were now clasped together loosely in her lap, fingers fidgeting, subtle, repetitive movements that Rumi had come to recognize without needing to think about it. Anxious. Mira felt it too. She straightened slightly behind her, her chin lifting from Zoe's shoulder as her expression shifted, attention sharpening. Zoe? Zoe blinked then, like she was pulling herself back into the moment. Her gaze flickered between the two of them before dropping again, her fingers tightening slightly against the fabric beneath them. Yeah, she said, though it came out quieter than usual, thinner somehow. She's going to be there, and my siblings too. That should have been normal. It was normal. So why did it feel like something else entirely was sitting underneath it? Mira's hand moved without hesitation, her fingers brushing lightly over Zoe's, a grounding touch. Tell me what you're thinking, baby, she murmured, her tone softening. Zoe exhaled, slow and uneven, before shifting back until she was resting against the headboard. Her head dipped forward slightly, gaze fixed somewhere in her lap like it was easier to look there than at either of them. For a second, she didn't say anything. Rumi waited. Zoe's eyes lifted then, flickering toward her, just for a moment. There was something in that look that made Rumi's stomach tighten slightly. Apologetic. Don't be mad, but Zoe murmured, her voice catching just slightly as her fingers tightened against the fabric of the blanket. I never told my mom that you were my girlfriend. The pause that followed felt heavier than it should have. Or that I'm in a poly relationship, she added, her voice dropping just a little further, her fingers curling tighter into the blanket. Rumi blinked. The words took a second to land, not because they were confusing, but because they didn't immediately fit into the version of things she'd been holding without realizing it. Of course, her mom didn't know everything. That made sense. But none of it? Mira's reaction came first. She blinked, then pushed herself up straighter, the surprise clear in the way her brows lifted. You haven't? She said, the words slipping out harshly before she could soften them. Zoe seemed to fold in on herself almost immediately. I know, she rushed out. The words tumbled over each other before anyone could respond. I know, it's not like she doesn't know who Rumi is because she does. She knows you, Rumi, just not like, not. She cut herself off with a shaky breath, her hand hanging in the blanket as if she could physically hold herself together. I just never had a right moment, she continued, quieter now, but no less frantic. I swear I tried. It's just everything kept happening, and then Mira got stabbed, and I wasn't about to tell my mom that over the phone because who does that? I didn't want to worry her, and then everything got complicated with us with the break, and things kept being busy here, and she knows I kind of do my own thing so she doesn't push, and I don't always reach out when I should, and every time I thought about telling her, it just her voice caught, but she kept going anyway. It wasn't the right time. It never felt like the right time because I'm here and she's back in Cali, and I didn't want to do it over text, and calling is hard with the time difference, and I kept telling myself I'd do it later, and then later just kept moving, and her breathing had gone uneven now, words starting to stumble over shallow inhales. And then it felt too late, she admitted, softer, her gaze dropping. Like, we were already too far in for it to be something casual I could just bring up. And then a few weeks turned into months, and the months turned into a year, and I just. She stopped, her shoulders rising and falling as she tried to steady herself. I'm sorry, Zoe said, her words barely above a whisper now. It's not because I'm ashamed of this, of us, of you, Rumi. Her eyes lifted then, finding Rumi's glassy and open in a way that made something in Rumi's chest tighten. Finding Rumi's glassy and open in a way that made something in Rumi's chest tighten. Please don't be mad at me. Rumi blinked. Once, twice. She parted her lips, something forming there instinctively, but it stalled before it could take shape. Because the truth was, she didn't know what she felt yet. The realization sat heavier than anything Zoe had said. Rumi exhaled softly and leaned back, letting herself sink into the bed instead of forcing an answer she didn't fully understand. The ceiling came into view, blank and steady, giving her something neutral to focus on while her thoughts caught up. She was aware of Zoe looking at her. Are you upset with me? She asked quietly, her voice smaller now, like she was bracing for something. Rumi didn't answer right away. She let the question sit, turning it over carefully instead of reacting to it. Upset. Was she? She searched for it, for that sharp, immediate feeling that usually came with being hurt or blindsided. It wasn't there. Not exactly. I don't know, she said finally. The words kept coming out honest and unpolished. Zoe nodded, not like she liked the answer, just like she understood it. Rumi stared up at the ceiling for another second before speaking again, slower now, trying to piece her thoughts together as she went. I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel about it, she admitted. I've never been in this kind of situation before. Her gaze flickered briefly towards Zoe, then away again, because it was easier to think when she wasn't trying to read her reaction at the same time. I've never even been in a relationship before this, she went on, her tone quiet yet thoughtful, almost detached in the way she was sorting through it. Not one that lasted long enough to meet parents or matter like that. Her fingers shifted lightly against the sheets, grounding herself in the texture. And with Mira, that was never really a thing, she added, glancing briefly in her direction. I didn't need her parents' approval. They're assholes, and I don't really care what they think. That part felt simple, clear, unlike everything else. And you guys can't really meet mine, she added more quietly. That's complicated. An understatement. Her chest tightened faintly at the thought. Her mother gone. Her dad. He's fucking sick in ways that still lingered in the back of her mind. Mira. the station, her mom. She pushed the memory aside before it could settle too deeply. And Celine, Rumi trailed off briefly, the corner of her mouth twitching just slightly. That's also complicated. She exhaled softly, her gaze unfocusing slightly as she tried to follow the thread of where she'd been going with all of this. What I'm trying to say is that I guess none of us have really had to do that, she said after a moment. That whole meeting family, being introduced properly, being something official in that way. Her fingers shifted lightly against the sheets, grounding herself in the texture. Her gaze flickered back to Zoe, softer now, but still uncertain. And I don't know your mom, she said quietly, so I don't really know what it means that she doesn't know about me, or what it's supposed to feel like. And that was the part she kept circling back to. Not anger, not even hurt exactly, just unfamiliar territory. Zoe nodded slowly, almost gratefully. Okay. The words sat there, small but sincere. Rumi let the quiet sit for a moment, but it didn't stay empty for long. There was another presence in it, something heavier, coiled tighter. She turned her head slightly, her gaze landing on Mira. Mira hadn't said a word, and that, more than anything, made Rumi pause. Mira, she said gently, though there was a knowing edge to it. Speak your mind. Mira didn't respond right away. She remained where she was, shoulders drawn a touch tighter than before, her gaze fixed somewhere along the creases of the bedspread instead of either of them. Rumi watched the subtle shifts in her expression, the way she seemed to be sorting through her first reaction instead of letting it spill out unchecked. She watched the way Mira's jaw shifted once, then again, the slow inhale through her nose, the exhale that followed, longer, more controlled. A year ago, this would have been different, sharper, faster, immediate. Now it was restrained, careful. When Mira finally spoke, her voice was steady, but there was weight behind it, something grounded instead of volatile. I'm a little pissed, she admitted, then paused, her brow tightening faintly before she corrected herself. Not at you, she added, glancing briefly at Zoe, then back down. Well, maybe a little, but mostly on Rumi's behalf. Rumi blinked at that, something in her chest shifting unexpectedly. Mira continued, slower now, choosing her words instead of letting them spill. This is Rumi's first relationship, she continued, her tone measured, careful in the way she chose each word. Not just with us, but in general. That matters. Even if she's not saying it out loud, it matters. Rumi's fingers curled faintly into the sheets. She hadn't, but hearing it said out loud made it feel real in a way she hadn't quite let herself sit with it. And you, Mira went on, her gaze lifting to Zoe now, steady and direct. You're the only one out of the three of us who actually has a good relationship with a parent. She paused there briefly, like she was checking her wording before continuing. That's not a bad thing, she added more gently. I'm not saying that like it's something you need to feel guilty about. There was no accusation in her tone, just clarity. But it does mean that part of your life carries a different kind of weight, she continued, not because of us, but because of what it represents. Her fingers shifted slightly against the blanket as she grounded herself. So when Rumi isn't included in that, she said, quieter now, but still firm, it's not just about not being mentioned. It ends up feeling like she doesn't exist in a part of your life that actually matters. Zoe's shoulders dipped a little further, her gaze dropping again. I get not telling her everything, Mira said, her tone softening just slightly, enough to keep it from cutting. I really do. I understand why you wouldn't tell her about me getting stabbed. I don't care about that. It's not something you just drop into conversation. She paused, letting that settle before continuing. I even understand being scared or nervous to tell her you're in a poly relationship. That's a big conversation. That's not easy. Mira's fingers shift against the blanket, grounding herself before she continued. But you kind of bundled all of that together, she said, quieter now, but no less firm. And in doing that, you boxed Rumi into that silence too. Rumi felt that land. Zoe must have felt it too because she flinched at it, her fingers tightening in her lap. In your mom's world, Mira continued, not unkindly, but honestly, Rumi isn't your girlfriend. She's what? Still your friend? Still our roommate? She let the questions hang there for a second, not demanding an answer, just letting the reality of it exist. And at that, Rumi felt something shift in her chest at that, disorienting in the way hearing it out loud made it more real than it had been a moment ago. That's where it feels off, she added, softer now, though her gaze didn't waver. Because it's not just about what you didn't say. It's about what that turns her into by default. She brought her hands up to her face then, pressing her palms against her eyes as she exhaled hard, grounding herself before continuing. If I were in her place, she said into her hands, voice slightly muffled, I'd probably be absolutely livid right now. Rumi's brows drew together faintly at that. Livid didn't feel right. Not for her, but she understood where Mira was coming from. Mira lowered her hand slowly, her gaze returning to Zoe, steadier again. And I hear you, she added, more gently. I believe you when you say you're not ashamed. I do. Zoe's eyes flickered up at that, fragile, searching. But intention doesn't always match impact, Mira continued. And the impact here is that it feels like you pushed her to the side. And I get it if this had been a few months, she said after a moment, her voice softer now, though no less clear. That's still early. You're figuring things out. You're testing the waters. She shook her head slightly. But a year, Zoe? A year? That's not just bad timing anymore. That's avoidance, even if you didn't mean for it to be. The words weren't harsh, but they were honest. Rumi felt shift slightly, her thoughts moving again now that everything had been laid out more clearly. It was strange because hearing Mira say it didn't make her feel angry. It made things clearer in a way. She could see both sides now, the way Zoe had let it slip unintentionally, and the way that slip had quietly shaped how Rumi existed in a part of her life she'd never seen. Rumi pushed herself up slowly from where she'd been lying, sitting back against the headboard so she could look at both of them properly. I don't feel livid, she said after a moment, her voice calm, thoughtful. Both of them looked at her. She hesitated for a second, not because she was unsure, but because she wanted to say it right. I think if I were, it'd be easier. A small, almost self aware breath slipping through her. At least then I'd know exactly what I'm feeling. Her fingers traced absently along the edge of the blanket again, grounding. But I'm not, she went on. I'm just trying to understand where I fit into this. She looked at Zoe then, really looked at her. Not just the guilt, not just the anxiety, but the intention underneath it. And I think that's what's bothering me, she said. Not that you didn't tell her yet, just that I didn't know I was something you were still waiting to tell her about. Zoe's lips parted slightly, like she wanted to respond, but Rumi continued before she could. But it does feel a little strange, she admitted, knowing that in that part of your life, I'm. something smaller than what I am here. There it was, not sharp, but honest. Zoe let out a shaky breath, like she'd been holding it for longer than she realized, her shoulders dropping as the tension slowly bled out of them. I wasn't waiting because I didn't think you mattered, she said quickly, the words fragile but urgent, like she needed them to land before anything else could. I don't want you to feel like you don't belong in my life because you do. You really do, Rumi. I just messed up how I handled this part of it. Mira watched her for a second longer, her expression still serious, still assessing, but the sharpness from earlier had softened into something quieter. Zoe swallowed, her gaze flickering briefly between the two of them before settling somewhere in the like she couldn't quite decide where to anchor herself. I'm sorry again, Rumi, she said, her eyes settling on her more fully this time. I'm sorry to both of you. She already knows about me and Mira, and her expression tightened slightly, guilt flickering across it. I know that probably makes it feel like you're not as important or like I'm treating you differently. Rumi felt something in her chest pull at that, heavy in a way that made her look down for a brief second, because, yeah, a part of her had felt like that. But you're not, Zoe continued quickly, almost like she could sense it. You're not less. You're not something separate. You're just as important to me. And I hate that what I did made it seem otherwise. She let out a small, frustrated breath, shaking her head at herself. I handled it badly, and I hate that I did. Her fingers twisted into the fabric of the blanket again before she forced them to still. I love you guys, she said, quieter now, but steadier. I'm not scared of that. I'd say it to anyone. You know I would. I know my mom, she added, her voice softening again. She probably wouldn't have cared, not in the way I built it up in my head, but I do that. I overthink it and then I wait and then it gets bigger and then I avoid it because it feels bigger. And she cut herself off with a quiet exhale, her shoulders lifting slightly before settling. That's not an excuse, she said, more grounded now. It's just what happened. And I'm really upset with myself for letting it get this far. Her gaze dipped for a second, then came back up. She hesitated, then added with a small, tentative sort of resolve. I'll tell her at graduation. Properly. No more waiting, no more later. I'll fix it. I'm sorry it took me this long to, but I will. Rumi let the words settle, not just what Zoe said, but how she said it. Okay, she said after a moment, her voice calm, but not distant. It wasn't dismissal, it was acceptance, with room still left to process. She shifted closer, the movement unhurried, giving herself that extra second to check in with how she felt before acting on it. And then she leaned in, wrapping her arms around Zoe. She pressed a soft kiss to her cheek, lingering just long enough for it to say what she didn't feel the need to put into words yet. Zoe let out a small, uneven laugh at that, somewhat still clinging to the edges of it as her hands came up, curling into the fabric of Rumi's shirt like she needed the reassurance of something solid. Mira let out a quiet huff beside them, though there was no real bite to it now, just the remnants of earlier tension fading into something softer. Idiot, she muttered, but her hand came up anyway, pulling Zoe in from the other side, pressing a kiss to her temple like it had been inevitable from the start. Zoe laughed again, more openly this time, even as she sniffed, her grip tightening slightly as she leaned into both of them. I know, Zoe breathed out, a wet laugh slipping past her lips as her fingers curled into both of them, holding on a little tighter than usual. I think that was one of the parts that Toss was talking about when she was like, these parts are long. Oh, dramatic scene about a first relationship, what side would you take? Please. I'm gonna take like a small break because that was really. I really want to like. I want to do a little like. Oh, I see. I kind of want to determine the line breaks. Okay. Cool. That part was long. Sorry. I'm also checking my. Okay, cool. The day before graduation. I'm graduating college tomorrow. Oh my god, no. Fuck. Oh my god, no. I'm graduating college tomorrow. Rumi turned over onto her stomach, the grass cool beneath her as she settled in, her chin resting against her folded arms. The stone in front of her stood quiet and familiar, its presence no longer as sharp as it once was, but never something she could ignore. Amma. A faint smile touched her lips as she looked at the engraving, her eyes tracing over it in a way that felt almost habitual. I. Her voice caught slightly, and she paused, swallowing it down before continuing. I wish you were here to see me walk across the stage. Rumi's gaze dipped, the smile lingering but turning smaller, more fragile around the edges. Her fingers moved absently through the grass, brushing along the blades, grounding herself into the texture. It helped a bit. That familiar fullness in her chest started again. I think you would have liked it, she went on quietly. Not the ceremony part, obviously. Not the ceremony part, probably. You always said those things were too long. A small breath of laughter slipped out of her, barely there, but real. But the part after that, she added, her voice softening. The pictures, the food, you would have made it a whole thing. She could almost see it. The way her mom would have fussed with her hair, straightened her clothes even if they didn't need it, insisted on taking too many photos from slightly off angles. Rumi's eyes burned faintly at the thought. She blinked, but the tears came anyway, slower than they used to, less overwhelming, but no less present. I did it, she said after a moment, her voice quieter now, steadier in a different way. It took me a while, and I didn't always know if I was going to make it this far, but I got there. Her fingers stilled in the grass. There were a lot of moments I wished I could ask you something, she admitted. Just tell you things as they were happening. Her throat tightened briefly, but she didn't stop this time. That was the difference. I think I'm okay though, she said, softer now, more certain than she expected to sound. Not all the time, but more than before. The wind shifted slightly, brushing past her again, gentler this time, like it was moving around her instead of through her. She let out a slow breath, her shoulders easing as she let the feeling pass through her instead of fighting it. It didn't knock her over anymore. It just stayed for a while. I'm still figuring things out, she said after a moment, her gaze lifting back to the stone. But I think you knew that was always going to be the case with me. A faint, watery smile returned. Her hand shifted, flat against the grass now, steady. I'm happy, though, she added quietly. I think I really am. Rumi blinked again, letting the last of the tears fall without wiping them away immediately. Wonderful. Rumi. Hi, Rumi. Hi, Woomy. Woomy. Oh, she is so everything. Graduation day. Let me get another sip for this. Graduation day. Rumi adjusted her cap again, fingers fussing with the edge like if she just got it right, it would stop feeling so off. She adjusted her cap again, forward, then back, then slightly to the side, like that would somehow make it feel less unnatural, perched on top of her head. Girl, this is so real. This is so accurate. It didn't. It still felt like it was just sitting there waiting to fall off at the worst possible moment. It really does feel like that. She let out a quiet breath through her nose, giving up on it for now as her hands smoothed down the front of her gown instead. The fabric hung a little awkwardly on her frame, not quite tailored, but she supposed that wasn't the point. This is real. They actually made it here. Actual adulthood, Mira muttered beside her, the words leaving her in a small exhale, like she wasn't sure whether to laugh about it or brace for it. Zoe grinned immediately, looping her arm through Mira's without hesitation. We survived the beta, she said lightly. I think we'll be fine. Rumi smiled at that, the corner of her mouth lifting as she glanced over at them. And yeah, God, they looked good. Even in the stupid gowns that didn't fit quite right, even with the awkward caps and the heat and everything else, they still looked like them. Mira with her hair pulled back, sharp and composed in that effortless way she had, just enough makeup to soften the edges without dulling them. Zoe with her hair falling in loose waves down her back, a little more put together than usual, but still unmistakably her. They both looked really good. Like, really, really, really. Yeah, Rumi said softly, almost to herself. Mira reached out then, taking both of their hands without asking, her fingers curling around theirs in a firm, grounding squeeze, the contact settling some of Rumi's nerves instantly. They sectioned the departments, she said, glancing glancing between them. So we won't be sitting together. Zoe groaned quietly. Of course they did. And these ceremonies take forever, too. I swear if I have to pee halfway through. Nice. Nice. Hey, that's nice. Hey, that's nice. That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. Uh-huh. Rumi snorted. The sound. Wait, actually, wait, that's funny. The more I think about it, the funnier it is. Exactly. our our Gopis girl. Rumi snorted, the sound slipping out before she could stop it, her shoulders loosening a little more. Don't jinx yourself, she said, shaking her head. You'll be fine. She paused, then glanced at Mira, something softer slipping into her expression. And it's not going to be long, she added quietly, before we see each other again. Mira's eyes flicked to hers, something in them easing just slightly. Rumi didn't overthink it. She stepped closer and pulled Mira in, her fingers curling into the fabric of her gown as she kissed her, slow, warm, a little lingering like she was trying to press the moment into memory. Mira immediately melted into it, her hand coming up to rest against Rumi's side. For a moment, everything else blurred out again. The noise, the movement, the fact that they were about to be separated into different rows, different sections, different paths, even if only for a couple of hours. Rumi pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, her voice softer now. See you after the ceremony? Mira blinked a couple times, like she was catching up, Then a small smile broke through, real and unguarded. Yeah, she said, quieter than before. Yeah, see you after the ceremony. Rumi smiled back, lingering for half a second longer before she turned to Zoe. Zoe didn't wait. She stepped in immediately, wrapping her arms tightly around Rumi, pulling her close with a kind of energy that always felt just a bit bigger than the moment, and yet somehow exactly right for it. Rumi laughed softly into the hug, her arms coming up around her in return, holding on just as firmly. When she pulled back, it was only enough to kiss her. Zoe met her halfway, just as sure, just as warm, the contact brief but full, like a promise that didn't need to be spoken out loud. When they separated, Zoe didn't let go right away, her hands tightening slightly at Rumi's sides. See you in a bit, she said, her voice softer now, but no less certain. Rumi nodded, smiling in a way that felt a little fuller than before as she looked between the two of them one more time. See you. And as they started to separate, pulled toward their different sections, Rumi held onto the feeling of their hands, their lips, the weight of their body against hers, all of it still sitting on her skin. Very sweet. What are y'all saying? Rayami reference about her. You didn't realize? I thought that was a reference, girl. Well, that's funny. That's listen, even if it's unintentional, that's funny as hell. Oh my god, that's true. The TC server exists. How are you guys doing over there? I hope y'all are having fun. Like I said, I've been very anti Discord, so I'm like, whatever's happening wherever, I'm like, it's happening. It's happening, and I'm trying to like focus on IRL shit right now. No, I'm crying. I'm gonna check out the TC server real quick. Cute. Cute, cute, cute. Okay, I'm back. My mini breaks, gotta take them. We're good low looking to rebrand to a toss server completely for all her fanfics. Makes sense. Oh my god, toss. When I go back to One Piece eventually, I watched the first season of it. When I go back to it eventually, I will try to read your fix, your One Piece fix. Because I've been thinking about that since I saw your profile. One day, it will happen. It will happen. They are so good. I believe it. I believe it. Like I've done the first season of the anime and the first season of the live action. I really need to watch the second season of the live action because I really, really enjoyed the live action. Anyways, in the future somewhere. Pushing through the sea of students felt like its own kind of sensory nightmare. Bodies pressed in from every direction, voices overlapping into a constant wall of noise that made it hard to think, let alone move in a straight line. The sun beat down relentlessly, and the black gown that had felt symbolic an hour ago now just trapped heat against her skin. Rumi could feel it. Warmth clinging to the back of her neck, the faint stickiness at her temples, the slow creeping discomfort of being overdressed in a crowd that didn't know how to disperse. She tightened her grip on her diploma instinctively, fingers curling around it just a little more as someone brushed past her shoulder. Losing this, what after everything, was not an option. Her phone buzzed suddenly in her hand, the sharp vibration cutting through the noise. She glanced down, relief flickering briefly when she saw the name Celine. Hello? She said, pressing the phone closer to her ear as she tried to block out some of the surrounding sound with her shoulder. I just realized I still haven't put up my freaking college certificate. my freaking my freaking diploma. I still haven't put it up. It's like in its folder still. Sorry, that just occurred to me. Wait, I'm gonna try and find it. Because I was like, for the longest time, I was like, I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna put it up. Never happened. Never happened. Is it here? Oh, it's right here. It's right here. Oh my god. Oh my god. I need to find a frame for it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Here it is. Proof. proof that I'm that I graduated. Bro, crazy. This one, I graduated 3 years ago, y'all. Like this should be like in a frame by now. Damn, girl, I haven't looked at this in a while. I was just like, damn, since we're talking about graduations, you and Rumi can celebrate. I am more adult than a lot of people in this fandom. Proof that I went to that godforsaken school. Oh god. I'll put this somewhere so that like I need to frame it. Like, come on. This is so funny. Okay, you sit there. You sit over there. Oh god. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. Shout out to my degree. That like I do use, but like just barely, you know? I have a fucking drama degree, y'all. Like I went to theater school. Oh, anyway. Her phone buzzed suddenly in her hand. I'll take it from there. The sharp vibration cutting through the noise. She glanced down, relief flickering briefly when she saw the name. Celine. Hello? She said, pressing the phone closer to her ear as she tried to block out some of the surrounding sound with her shoulder. It didn't help much. What? What? She added, squinting slightly as if that would somehow make it easier to hear. Where are you? Celine's voice came through, faint but recognizable under the static of everything else. Rumi turned slightly in place, scanning her surroundings like that would give her a better answer. I'm like, she hesitated, trying to piece together something useful. In the middle, near the big sign and Rumi? Celine cut in, amusement threading through her tone even over the noise. You explain things pretty vaguely. Rumi huffed softly, shifting her weight as someone squeezed past her. Okay, fair, she admitted. Just text me where you are and I'll come to you. That'll be easier. Sounds good. Okay. She ended the call quickly, lowering the phone as she let out a small breath. Her thumb moved automatically, opening the group chat. Thruple trouble. Rumi, 3:45 p.m. Guys, are you safe somewhere and not getting trampled by the large body of students? She didn't have to wait long. So lovely, 3:46 p.m. Nah, feeling like Flat Stanley right about now. Despite everything, Rumi let out a quiet laugh under her breath, the image immediate and ridiculous enough to cut through the discomfort. Then Mira's message came in. Miriam, 3:46 p.m. It's hot. It's loud and crowded. I'm sweaty and overwhelmed. My foot is throbbing so hard right now because some freaking chud had the nerve to jump out of nowhere with their gigantic 12-ton indestructible military-grade boots and land directly on my foot. I'm literally seconds away from blowing everybody up, including myself. Hashtag I want to go home. Rumi winced slightly as she read it, her brows pulling together. So lovely, 3:48. So lovely, 3:48 p.m. Youch. Hashtag Mira and terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Hashtag sorry. We can totally just chill and cuddle when we get back. I can rub your foot if you want and make your favorite meal. Rumi, 3:51 p.m. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Sad face. Sorry about your foot. Kisses for you when we meet. Miriam, 3:52 p.m. Thumbs up. Rumi huffed out a small breath at that, shaking her head slightly. Classic. Zo Lovely, 3:54 p.m. Send us your exact coordinates, Rumi. Rumi, 3:55 p.m. Salute. This is reminding me of I graduated at Yankee Stadium, and I was like trying to communicate with my parents, and my parents were like, "We're in this section," and I like saw them because my mom has like bright red hair, so I was like, "That's my mom." Like I spotted her immediately. She has like the brightest red hair known to man. It's so easy to spot her in a crowd. She slipped her phone back down slightly, weaving through a thinner part of the crowd now as the density finally started to break. The noise didn't disappear, but it softened enough that she could think again, could actually see more than just shoulders and moving fabric. And then, there. Rumi's expression shifted immediately, something brighter breaking through the lingering overwhelm as she spotted Celine just ahead, standing slightly off to the side where things weren't quite as congested. Relief came first. Celine, she called out, lifting her hand as she quickened her pace, weaving the last few steps through the thinning crowd. Each step felt lighter the closer she got, the pressure of bodies easing, the noise dulling just enough that she could finally breathe without bracing herself for the next person bumping into her. And then she was there. Up close, she noticed it immediately. The basket resting at Celine's hip, larger than she expected, carefully held like it mattered. Rumi's brow pulled together slightly, a quiet question forming before she even said anything. But it didn't come out. Instead, she stepped in and hugged her. Celine's arm came around her without hesitation, firm and familiar in a way that made something in Rumi's body loosen before she could stop it. You were amazing up there. Rumi let out a small laugh against her shoulder, pulling back just enough to look at her. All I did was walk across the stage. I know, Celine smiled, but her eyes were already glassy, catching the light in a way that made something in Rumi's chest tighten. She'd be proud. Rumi felt her throat tighten slightly, but she didn't fight it. Instead, she nodded, a small smile forming as she let herself accept it. I know, she said quietly, and she meant it. Her gaze flicked back to the basket, needing a second, needing something lighter to hold on to before she sank too far into that feeling. She pointed at it. That for me? Celine shifted a little, almost like she was suddenly unsure of herself, before holding it out. It's nothing too grand, she said, her voice light but careful. Just things you like. I saw it online, thought it would be a nice graduation gift. Rumi took it carefully, her fingers brushing against the handle before she pulled it closer, peeking inside. And it was a bunch of citrus scented products, of course. Her mouth pulled into a pout almost immediately. Celine. It came out softer than she meant it to, already thick with something behind it. You're welcome, Celine said gently, like she knew exactly what that tone meant. Rumi didn't even try to hold it together after that. She stepped forward again and wrapped her arm around her tighter this time, pressing her face into her shoulder. Thank you, she mumbled, her voice wavering just enough to betray her. Celine hugged her back just as tightly, her hand coming up to cradle the back of Rumi's head for a second before she pulled back, just enough to look at her. Celine paused, like she was choosing her words carefully, or maybe like they were just hard to get out. I look at you now and I see this brilliant, caring woman you've become. Rumi swallowed, her throat already tightening. But at the same time, she continued, her expression faltering just a little, I still see that little girl I used to hold. And through everything you went through, her voice wavered, her eyes shining more openly now. even if it didn't feel like it. And I know it probably didn't underneath all that anger, all that hurt. She hesitated until the next part cost her something. I loved you, she finished quietly. Even when I didn't show it the way I should have, you were still my baby. That did it. Rumi's vision blurred, her breath catching as something. She didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded and stepped forward again without thinking, wrapping her arm around Celine and holding her tighter this time, blinking hard against the sting behind her eyes. I know, I know, she managed, though it came out uneven, her voice thick with the emotion she wasn't trying to push down anymore. I'm sorry, Celine said, the words breaking slightly as they left her. Rumi closed her eyes briefly, her grip tightening just a fraction. She nodded against her shoulder, a small, shaky motion. When she finally pulled back, she sniffed lightly, brushing at her eyes without trying too hard to hide it. Can I take some pictures? Celine asked after a moment, voice slightly strained, like she didn't want to push too far into the heaviness. Rumi let out a small breath, something almost like a laugh slipping through as she nodded. Yeah, yeah. Do you have mom? Celine nodded, already reaching into the basket, pulling out a frame and holding it out to her. Way. Rumi's hands slowed as she took it, and for a second everything else faded again. Her thumb brushed lightly along the edge of the frame as she looked down at the photo. Her mom, younger, smiling wide at the camera, eyes squeezed shut, fingers raised in a peace sign like she didn't have a single thing weighing her down. Rumi felt her chest tighten, but this time it came with warmth, not just loss, memory. Her lips pulled into a small, fragile smile. Then she stepped back, adjusting her grip on the frame before holding it up in front of her, angling it slightly so both she and the photo would be in view, holding her there with her, together. Okay, she said softly. She looked up at Celine, and for a second, she let herself feel all of it at once, the ache, the love, the missing, the still here. And then she smiled. Not perfect, not untouched, but real. Click. Wham! I'm gonna just open my door so that the cool air can blow in. It's so hot in here. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh god, that's so loud though. That is so loud. That's the thing, bro. I tried to do some recording yesterday, but it was so hot that I did not want to turn the AC off. That's the thing. You're still paying for my therapy bills. I don't have a Blues Club about graduation. Please. Okay. After the last photo, as the moment settled and the camera lowered, Rumi became aware of the noise again, the movement of people, voices overlapping, and the steady hum of celebration all around her. She adjusted her grip on the basket slightly, about to say something to Celine when Rumi? Oh! The voice cut cleanly through the noise. Familiar. Rumi blinked, shifting her weight as she looked over her shoulder, and her eyes widened almost immediately. Cindy? Cindy stood a few steps away, smiling in that easy, warm way that hadn't changed at all. Hi, she said, her voice just as gentle as Rumi remembered. Congratulations. Rumi felt herself smile immediately, something bright and genuine lifting her expressions as she stepped forward. Thank you, she said, closing the distance and pulling her into a hug without hesitation. Cindy returned it just as naturally, the embrace steady and grounding. Rumi found herself swaying slightly with it, a small, unconscious motion. Rumi pulled back with a small laugh. I've been really good, actually. What about you? Cindy waved a hand lightly, dismissive, but not in a negative way. The usual, she said, enjoying every day that I can. Rumi nodded at that, something about the phrasing sticking with her for a second longer than expected. Do you know where Mira is? Cindy added, glancing around briefly before her gaze settled back on Rumi. I was hoping I'd find her with you. Rumi blinked, shifting slightly as she looked around. Uh, yeah, she's making her way over here, I think. You can wait with us if you want. She turned slightly as she said it, and that was when it hit her. Oh, right. Celine. Celine was standing just a step behind her, quiet, observant, her gaze moving between the two of them with open curiosity. Right, introductions. She straightened instinctively, her brain scrambling to figure out how to explain any of this in a way that made sense out loud. Let me introduce you to, she said, a little too quickly. Uh, Celine, this is Cindy, Mira's family's old personal chef turned. She hesitated, her face tightening slightly as she tried to land it somewhere that made sense. Newfound mom, sort of, is that right? Even as the words left her mouth, she winced. Cindy just laughed softly, nodding like she'd heard worse. That's one way to put it. Rumi let out a breath when she realized Cindy didn't take offense. And Cindy continued, turning towards Celine. This is my she stalled because what was the cleanest way to explain Celine? This is Celine, she finished, the rest of the sentence dissolving into something far less confident. She's technically family, but yeah. She immediately wanted to disappear. Cindy, to her credit, didn't miss a beat. She simply turned towards Celine and held out her hand, her smile polite but still warm. It's nice to meet you, Celine. Celine blinked like she'd been pulled out of a thought before stepping forward and taking her hand. Her grip was firm, maybe a little too firm, and she nodded once, posture straightening instinctively. You as well, she said, then quickly corrected herself. Nice to meet you, I mean. Rumi watched the handshake linger a second too long, then another. She could see the exact moment Celine realized it too. Celine's shoulders stiffened slightly before she let go, her hand dropping back to her side a little too quickly. Apologies. Cindy's smile widened just slightly, something more amused slipping into it, her eyes glinting just a little. I can see where Rumi gets her mannerisms from. Rumi felt her face heat up immediately. That is so sweet. Celine blinked, straightening even more, like she'd just been put on the spot in a way she didn't quite know how to respond to. Oh, well, that's. She started, then faltered, her composure slipping just enough to show the uncertainty underneath. The thing is, I'm not her. She stopped herself mid sentence, something in her expression shifting as she seemed to realize she was over explaining. She deflated just a little. I suppose you could say that. She finished instead, quieter. There was a brief pause, and then, without warning, sorry to ask, Celine said suddenly, her tone shifting in a way that made Rumi's head snap toward her. But what products do you use on your hands? They're quite soft. Oh? Oh? A mute cute? A meet cute? Oh? Hello? Okay. Rumi blinked. Once, twice. Cindy somehow did not seem thrown off in the slightest. She simply extended her hand again, watching with mild curiosity as Celine took it back, this time more carefully. Rumi could see the way Celine's brows furrowed slightly, focused in that particular way she got when she was analyzing something. Her thumb brushed slightly over Cindy's skin, examining it with a kind of focus that made the interaction feel oddly clinical. Not much, Cindy said, watching her with interest. Just a hand lotion, really. Comes with the job, I suppose. I work with my hands a lot. Celine nodded, her thumb brushing once over the back of Cindy's hand, thoughtful, and then she froze. Rumi saw it happen in real time. The realization. Celine pulled back slightly, her posture tightening again. Ah, apologies. I've simply never felt. She stopped mid sentence, her eyes widened just a fraction. I. Her gaze dropped to their hands again, more focused now. I'm sorry, did I squeeze too hard earlier? Rumi followed her line of sight, only just now noticing the faint tremble in Cindy's hand. Cindy let out a soft chuckle, lifting her hand in a small, easy wave like she was brushing the concern away before it could settle too heavily. You're fine. It was a bad accident. Left me with some nerve damage. My hand just does that now. Don't worry about it. Oh, okay. Celine nodded once, like she was filing the information away somewhere precise and important. And then she just dropped Cindy's hand. Rumi blinked. Celine froze almost immediately after. Sorry, that was rude. You're fine, Celine, Cindy said smoothly, not missing a step, her smile never faltering. Rumi watched her for a second longer than necessary, trying to read it. She couldn't tell if Cindy was just being kind, smoothing over the awkwardness for Celine's sake, or if she genuinely wasn't bothered at all. Maybe both. Her gaze shifted to Celine. She had never seen her act like this before. Celine, who was usually so composed, so measured in everything she said and did, now acting awkward. It caught Rumi off guard more than she expected. Well, it made sense, didn't it? Rumi knew she didn't have a lot of friends. Not really. Not after her mom's death. The thought came quickly, but it settled heavy. Before she could think too much further, Rumi? The voice cut clean through her thoughts, bright and familiar enough to pull her out of it instantly. She turned and her face lit up without hesitation. Zoe! Zoe was already jogging toward her, waving her diploma in the air like it was a flag, her grin wide and completely unrestrained. Not far behind her, Mira followed at a much slower pace, her expression somewhere between tired and deeply over it. Rumi barely had time to put the basket down before Zoe reached her, and then she was being pulled into a hug. Hi, she said, her voice lifting, warmth coming back easily. It's been forever since I last saw you. Zoe let out a dramatic little groan into her shoulder. It has, she agreed, before pulling back just enough to press an exaggerated, very wet kiss to Rumi's cheek. Rumi squealed softly, breaking into giggles as she turned her head away, her free hand coming up instinctively to wipe at her cheek. Zoe! But she was smiling. Behind them, Mira had finally caught up. She stopped a step away, arms folded, posture stiff, her expression unreadable as she watched the two of them, not saying a word. Zoe snorted, glancing over her shoulder. I already gave her a few kisses. I already gave her a few kisses, she stage whispered to Rumi, jerking her thumb toward Mira. But she's still in I want to burn everybody mode. Rumi laughed under her breath, already moving toward Mira. Come here, she murmured, reaching up to cup her face, her thumbs pressing lightly into her cheeks and squishing them together just enough to make her lips pout. Mira made a small, offended noise that didn't hold up for more than a second before Rumi leaned in and started pressing quick kisses all over her face, cheek, jaw, the corner of her mouth, messy, uncoordinated, and very intentional. She felt it happen as she did it, The way Mira's shoulders dropped, the tension in her arms loosening, the tightness in her expression softening like it had been waiting for exactly this. There it was. Rumi pulled back just enough to look at her, grinning. Feel a bit better now? Mira exhaled, her forehead tipping forward until it rested against Rumi's shoulder, her voice quieter now. A little, she admitted. Still hot and sweaty. Zoe immediately slid in behind her, arms wrapping around her waist as she pressed close, her hand beginning to rub slow circles over her stomach. You're okay, she cooed, soft and teasing all at once. My little pink lady. Mira huffed weakly, but didn't pull away. You guys are adorable. All three of them startled slightly. Cindy stood there, her expression unmistakably amused. Mira straightened so fast, almost impressive, pulling away like she'd been caught doing something illegal, and Rumi watched as the tips of her ears flushed pink. Oh, that was really adorable. You made it? Mira said, her voice shifting entirely higher as she turned towards Cindy, the edge gone, replaced with something softer, almost disbelieving. Her eyes looked bigger suddenly, shinier. Cindy nodded, her arms barely opening before Mira closed the distance and hugged her tightly, like she didn't trust the moment to stay if she didn't grab onto it. So proud of you, Mira, she murmured, her voice warm and steady, one hand coming up to cradle the back of Mira's head. Rumi watched the way Mira leaned into it without thinking, her grip tightened slightly around Cindy, like she was holding onto something she didn't get often enough, before she finally pulled back, brushing quickly at her eyes like she didn't want to make a whole thing out of it. Celine stepped in then, lit her camera slightly. Do you two want a picture? Cindy's face softened immediately as she nodded, glancing over at Mira like the answer depended on her. Mira nodded too, a little more composed now, even if the pink hadn't fully left her face. They shifted off to the side, away from the crowd, where the background wasn't just a blur of moving people and noise. Rumi's eyes tracked them automatically, and that's when she noticed Mira's steps lagging just slightly behind Cindy's. Not by much, just a small hitch in her movement, a careful shift of weight that didn't quite look natural. A hobble. Rumi's brows knit faintly. Cindy noticed it too. She slowed, turning just enough to look at her. Are you okay? Mira nodded. Yeah, I'm fine. My right foot just hurts. Someone stepped on it earlier. Oh, you poor thing, Cindy murmured, already moving closer, her hand reaching instinctively toward Mira's leg like she was about to check it herself. We can sit somewhere, make it easier on you. Mira stepped back almost immediately, her face flushing deeper. It's fine, I don't need to sit. I can still stand. Nonsense, Cindy said softly, not even remotely convinced. Her hand came up instead to rest against Mira's back, gentle but firm as she guided her toward a nearby bench. I can tell you're trying to hide it. Come on, lean on me. I'm serious. It's fine. I don't need help. Mira's voice dipped into something dangerously close to a whine that Rumi had to bite the inside of her cheek to keep from laughing. She turned slightly, glancing at Zoe. Zoe looked like she was seconds away from bursting, her shoulders shaking slightly as she tried to stay quiet. I can't believe I'm watching Mira get embarrassed over being coddled by Cindy, Rumi muttered under her breath, a small giggle slipping out anyway. Right? Zoe whispered back, eyes bright with amusement. She's just mad because she can't act all nonchalant around her girlfriends. Rumi choked, covering her mouth for a second as she watched Mira finally give in and sit, her posture stiff at first, like she was trying to salvage some dignity out of the situation. It didn't work. Not when Cindy leaned in, brushing a kiss against her cheek just before the photo. Not when Mira's expression softened into that small, flustered smile she only got when she didn't know what to do with the attention. The camera clicked, and Rumi felt that same warmth again, watching it all unfold, something easy and full settling around the edges of the moment. Celine lowered the camera, then turned toward them. Can I get a photo with all you girls in it? Rumi blinked, pulled out of it for a second. Oh, yeah, she said, nodding. And before she could move, Mira was already pushing herself up from the bench. I need to stand for this, she huffed, like it was a matter of principle. She shuffled over, doing her best to ignore the earlier fuss, and Rumi stepped in between her and Zoe without thinking. She slipped her arms around both of their shoulders, pulling them in close. Familiar. Easy. Her smile came naturally this time, the diploma lifting slightly in her hand. Beside her, Zoe flipped hers open and pretended to read it, her face twisting into an exaggeratedly thoughtful expression like she was deeply analyzing something important. Rumi felt a laugh bubble up immediately. On her other side, Mira kept it simple, holding hers up with a small, genuine smile, her thumb lifting in a quiet, understated gesture. Very Mira. Rumi glanced between them for just a second and felt it again. That same quiet, steady warmth. Okay, she said, her voice soft but bright. And then, click. This is the Two's Company finale. Listen, I love Celine XOC, okay? I love Coraline, and I would love Cindy and Celine. I was like, yeah, I would eat that shit up. Give me my old woman Yuri. Oh, I'm gonna open the. It's like a little slightly chillier outside than it is inside. I'm like, I'm like thinking about the possibilities. Okay. Oh my god, I want to tweet something. Oh, wait, I'm gonna tweet something. Wait, I should find the. Where is it? 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 Boom. Sorry, y'all. I'm gonna tweet something because I'm so annoying. Anyways, I'm back. I'm so normal. Okay. Rumi barely had time to loosen her hold on them before everything shifted. Zoe was suddenly yanked backward. Shrimp! Rumi blinked, and suddenly there were people, 4 of them, all at once, closing in around Zoe in a blur of movement and noise. Oh, one of them reached over and rubbed his knuckles lightly against Zoe's head like it was second nature. Another wrapped her up in a hug so forceful it actually lifted her a little off the ground. And a third had already snatched her diploma out of her hands like he had every right to, flipping it open with exaggerated curiosity. Ruby froze for half a second, caught completely off guard. What? Oh, oh, you should have seen it. Mom was bawling like a baby, one of them said casually, like this was a continuation of a conversation Rumi hadn't been here for. Rumi's eyes flicked from one face to another, and then she saw it. The resemblance, not identical, but unmistakable. Something in the eyes, the shape of their smiles, the way they carried themselves. Her gaze drifted back to Zoe, who was who was currently half laughing, half struggling in the middle of it all. Let me go, Zoe giggled, wriggling out of the tallest one's grip, shoving at him without any real force behind it. And I'm not a shrimp. I'm practically older than half of you. Sorry, I'm just thinking about Haikyuu. I saw shrimp and I was like, Haikyuu mode activated. Well, your height says otherwise, one of the younger looking ones muttered under his breath. Rumi barely had time to register the comment before Zoe punched him right in the stomach. Rumi's entire body tensed, her eyes widening as she watched him fold slightly, a strange sound leaving him as he grabbed at his middle. I guess I've been away for a while, Zoe went on like nothing had happened, cracking her knuckles lightly. Because you suddenly got balls, Zeke. I can still beat you up, you know? Zeke wheezed out a laugh, or something close to it, nodding quickly. I was just joking, he croaked. Ruby stared, glancing hesitantly between the two, very much concerned. Was that normal? Yeah, girl, this is the sibling dynamic. No one else seemed alarmed, let alone step in, and that confused her more than the punch itself. Whoa, Zoe, you got a lip piercing? One of the shorter ones suddenly cut in, leaning closer with wide eyed excitement. Zoe sniffed, wiping under her nose like she needed a second to compose herself, even though she was clearly pleased. Yeah, felt the need to. Didn't hurt one bit. Liar, one snorted. Zoe? The voice came sharp and fast, cutting through everything else. I'm trying to find a different voice for all of them, but it's impossible. Cutting through everything else, and before Rumi could even turn fully, a blur of movement collided with Zoe. A girl threw her arms around her, nearly knocking her off balance. Zoe laughed instantly, catching her with ease and lifting her slightly off the ground like she weighed nothing. Hi, Zella. Zella pulled back just enough to look at her, her expression somewhere between crying and talking at the same time, words spilling out too fast for Rumi to catch all of them. Zoe didn't try to interrupt. She just smiled, softer now, setting her down carefully before reaching up to wipe at her eyes, pressing quick kisses across her face in a way that made Zella break into giggles despite herself. Rumi felt something in her chest ease at that. That part she understood. Zella, you can't just run off like that, a woman's voice cut in, firm but not harsh. Not with this many people around. Rumi looked up to see a woman approaching, her expression stern at first, until her eyes landed on Zoe. And then it shifted. Zoe's face changed immediately too, the playfulness dropping into something softer, almost instinctive, as she stepped forward and wrapped her in a hug. Hey, Munchkin, the woman murmured, her voice gentle. Rumi watched the way she held Zoe and the way Zoe leaned into it. When she pulled back, her eyes flicked past her, landing on Mira. Mira? Mira smirked faintly, like she'd been expecting it. Zira, interesting. Zira. Rumi glanced between them, catching the familiarity there, the quiet recognition that didn't need explaining. Zoe cleared her throat then. Oh, they all have names starting with a Z. Duh. Zoe cleared her throat then, like she was remembering something, and turned back toward Rumi. Rumi, she said, gesturing toward them. These are my sisters. Her hand moved first toward the older one, Zira, who really did look like Zoe, just sharper somehow, taller, her features more defined, her hair a different shade, but the resemblance still unmistakable. Then to Zella, who was still looking at Rumi with open curiosity, her eyes wide and bright. And yeah, the resemblance there was strong. And those knuckleheads are my brothers. Zoe jerked her thumb over her shoulder toward the group of boys still hovering nearby. Zeke, Zayden, Xavier, and Zev. Jesus Christ. Xavier with a Z. Rumi's gaze flicked between them again, something like quiet amazement settling in as she took in the similarities she hadn't fully processed. So wait, Zella Zira. Yeah, seven kids. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. The height, for one, most of them towering in a way that made Zoe's earlier shrimp comment feel a little too accurate. The faces, too, each slightly different but tied together by something unmistakable. All Z, all Z's. There was something almost impressive about the commitment. Rumi's shoulders hadn't fully relaxed since earlier, her mind still catching, every now and then, on the image of Zoe's fist connecting with Zeke's stomach, and how quickly everyone had moved past it. Zeke was already talking again like it hadn't happened. Rumi didn't know what to do with that. And my dear brothers and sisters, Zoe continued, turning back toward her with an easy grin. This is Rumi. Rumi straightened slightly without meaning to, suddenly very aware of herself again, her posture, her expression, the way she was holding her diploma. My girlfriend. Rumi felt it instantly. That small, involuntary lift in her chest. Warm, bright. She perked up just a little, offering a small, slightly shy wave. Hi, she said softly. Rumi felt all of them looking at her now, really looking, and it made something in her chest tighten just a bit. 12 pairs of eyes moved in perfect, almost eerie sync, from her to Mira, and then back again. Oh, I have two girlfriends, she rushed out quickly, her hands coming up like she could physically smooth over the moment. I'm in a poly relationship with them. There was a pause, long enough for Rumi to feel it stretch. She became acutely aware of everything all at once, the way her fingers curled in slightly at her side, the faint heat creeping up her neck, the way she wasn't entirely sure where to look. At them, at Zoe, at Mira, then, what? They all shouted, perfectly in sync. Rumi flinched before she could stop herself. Okay, that was one way to react. Her heart kicked a little faster in her chest, not quite panic, but not entirely calm either. She was not used to this. Zella's voice cut through the aftermath, softer, smaller, but somehow just as noticeable. What the hell is a poly relationship? Incredible, incredible. Time to educate some people. Hi, Rex. You are so good. What the hell is a poly relationship? Am I right, guys? Oh my god. The freaking TikTok notifications are driving me insane. I'm like, I don't need to be seeing all of this. I'm just gonna do battery check before my phone dies again. Oh, yet again. Hey, Richard, how you doing? Hey, girl. Hey, Richard Abath. Okay. Are we charging? Are we charging? Girl, the hell? Oh, we're charging. Yay. What the hell is a poly relationship? Woo, Zoe. Rumi Zoe, this is how I relax. Yeah. Now let's keep going. One explanation later, short, slightly rushed, and very Zoe, Zella nodded slowly, her fingers coming up to rub thoughtfully at her chin. Wow, she said, like she was still turning it over in her head. Rumi found herself watching her for a second, oddly grateful for the simplicity of that reaction. I can't believe it. I really can't. Zeke suddenly I don't know how old Zeke is supposed to be. Like he's probably not that young. I can't believe it. I really can't. Zeke suddenly burst out, grabbing Zayden by the shoulders and shaking him hard enough that his head snapped back slightly. My sister is so lame. How does she manage to get two hot girlfriends? Rumi froze. Lame? Her eyes flicked instinctively to Zoe, who didn't even hesitate. Because you act like that, she shot back flatly, before immediately flipping her hair in an over the top motion, her expression shifting into something smug and theatrical. And besides, the ladies love me. It's an inherited gene. Right, Zayden huffed, prying Zeke's hands off him with an annoyed look. Rumi blinked, her gaze flicking between them. And before she could think too hard about it, one of them, Xavier, she thought, stepped forward, her posture suddenly more deliberate as he cleared his throat. He smiled at her, confident, easy. Hey, he said, like they'd already met. Just want to say you're very beautiful. And thank you for taking in a charity case like my sister. We're very grateful. Rumi's mouth dropped open. Charity case? Her eyes snapped towards Zoe immediately, something sharp and protective rising in her chest before she could stop it. But Zoe just laughed, actually laughed. She shoved Xavier sideways with a roll of her eyes, the corner of her mouth lifting. Don't listen to him. Rumi stared for a second longer than she meant to, her thoughts tripping over themselves because Zoe didn't look hurt, didn't even look annoyed. If anything, she looked used to it. Were siblings always this rude to each other? She glanced away, grounding herself for a second, and her eyes landed on Mira. Mira stood a few feet away with Zev, her posture relaxed, her phone angled between them as she showed him something. Zev leaned in slightly, nodding along, occasionally glancing up at her with interest. What the hell was going on? Rumi, right? The voice pulled her back immediately. Rumi turned, blinking, only to find Zira standing directly in front of her now, hands folded loosely against her chest, her expression calm but observant in a way that made Rumi straighten without meaning to. Yeah, hi, Rumi said quickly, her voice just a touch tighter than before. It's nice to meet you. Zira nodded once, her smile small but warm. You taking good care of my little sister? There was no hesitation. Rumi nodded immediately, the answer coming out faster and more earnest than she expected. Yes, great care, actually. I mean, she stumbled slightly, heat rising to her face. I love her. A lot, actually. The words hung there for a second. Honest, unfiltered. Zira's smile widened. She reached out and patted Rumi's shoulder, firmly enough that it made her straighten a little more. I'm glad, she said. She's lucky. Rumi blinked. You're very pretty. You're very pretty. Oh! Rumi's eyes dropped for a second, her face warming further as she tried to process both the compliment and the intensity of Zira's gaze. Thank you. You're pretty as well. And it was true, but it was also confusing because the resemblance to Zoe was there. The similarities layered with the differences made her brain keep trying to sort them and failing. And she had to keep reminding herself that this wasn't Zoe she was talking to. Zoe gets her looks from me, just so you know, Zira added with a wink before turning and walking off like she hadn't just dropped that into the conversation. Rumi stood there for a second, unsure what to do with any of that. Zoe reappeared at her side, one brow raised, clearly having watched the entire exchange from a distance. Did my sister just hit on you? She asked. Rumi turned to her slowly. I don't know, she admitted, her voice quiet and thoroughly confused. Zoe huffed out a small laugh, nudging her lightly with her shoulder. She's not serious. She just likes to be annoying. Rumi nodded. That seemed to be a theme, a strong one. Wait! Zoe's head turned suddenly as she glanced around, her expression shifting. Where's Mom? Rumi followed her gaze instinctively, her own eyes scanning the crowd. Zayden let out a small groan from somewhere behind her. She saw an old she saw an old she saw an old friend, he said, dragging a hand down his face. Got stuck talking. You know how she is. It lasted forever, so we just came to find you. Yeah, I hope she's not still over there. Oh, wait, Zev cut in, pointing off to the side. She's coming now. Zoe perked up immediately. Rumi's attention snapped in the same direction, and that was when she saw her. A woman was making her way toward them from a few feet away, weaving carefully between people, her expression already softening the second her eyes landed on Zoe. Rumi knew before anyone said it. Zoe's mom. Something tiny and nervous pulled tight in her stomach. Zoe glanced back at her and Mira then, her smile flickering with something that looked almost apologetic. I'll be right back, she said quietly. Rumi nodded because that was the easy thing to do. Nodding didn't reveal that her heart had suddenly started beating like she'd been asked to stand in front of the entire crowd and introduce herself. She didn't realize she was holding her breath until Zoe met her halfway. The second that they reached each other, Zoe threw her arms around her. She hugged her like the moment had been waiting inside her all day and she couldn't hold it back anymore. Her mom laughed a little, surprised but warm, and wrapped her arms around Zoe just as tightly. Zoe squeezed harder, burying herself into the hug, and even from where Rumi stood, she could see the way Zoe's shoulders trembled. Rumi's chest squeezed. She didn't know why the sight hit her so hard. Maybe it was the ease of it, the way Zoe reached without hesitation and was received without question, the way her mom's hand came up to smooth over the back of her hair like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rumi couldn't help but stare. Her own mother used to hug her like that. The thought came so suddenly that Rumi had to swallow around it. She tried to push it away before it could fully form, but it had already left a bruise behind. Zoe pulled back just enough to look at her mom, and Rumi saw it then, the tremble in Zoe's mouth, the shine gathering in her eyes, that dangerous little wobble that meant she was only one breath away from crying. Her mom said something to her. Zoe nodded quickly, too quickly, her face crumpling with a laugh that looked more like a sob. Her mom brushed both thumbs over Zoe's cheeks, wiping away tears before they could properly fall, then leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Zoe's whole body seemed to soften under it. Her shoulders dropped, her face crumpled more, like whatever she'd been trying to hold together finally gave way the second she was allowed to. Rumi's fingers curled faintly at her sides. Sorry. She couldn't hear what they were saying from here, but she didn't need to. Zoe had that look on her face, that bright, overwhelmed, helpless look she got when something was too big to fit neatly inside her chest. Then Zoe straightened a little. Rumi noticed it immediately. It wasn't much, just a small shift in posture, a little inhale, a determined lift of her chin, but Rumi knew her well enough by now to recognize when Zoe was trying to gather herself, trying to say something important without turning into a puddle halfway through. Rumi's stomach flipped. She's telling her. The realization landed with terrifying certainty. Zoe was telling her mom right now about them, about Rumi, about all of it. Zoe's hands started moving as she spoke, quick and animated, and Rumi almost laughed despite the nerves because, of course, Zoe was rambling. Even from a distance, she could see it in the way Zoe barely paused for air, the way her fingers fluttered and pointed and circled like her body had to help carry the words because her mom couldn't move fast enough. Then Zoe turned her head. Their eyes met. Rumi froze. Zoe said something else and gestured toward her. Rumi forgot how to breathe for half a second. Zoe's mom followed the motion, her gaze shifting across the space between them until it landed directly on Rumi. Rumi's spine went stiff. It was ridiculous, completely ridiculous. The woman wasn't glaring. She wasn't frowning. She wasn't doing anything that should have made Rumi feel like she'd been caught doing something wrong. But still, something passed across her face, something Rumi couldn't name. Surprise, maybe? Curiosity? Recognition? It was a quiet kind of assessment. Or maybe Rumi was projecting. Maybe she was taking one normal look from Zoe's mother and turning it into judgment because her brain had never learned how to accept being looked at without preparing for the worst. Still, her pulse jumped. Does she know I'm the new one? The thought made her stomach twist. That was such an ugly way to put it, but it arrived before Rumi could stop it. The new one. The person who came after. The person who wasn't there from the beginning. The person who had somehow been lucky enough, selfish enough, impossible enough to be loved by Zoe and Mira both. Would Zoe's mom think that was strange? Would she think Rumi had intruded on something that had already been whole? Would she look at Mira and Zoe and decide Rumi didn't fit in? A warm hand slid around her waist before the thoughts could spiral any further. Mira pulled her closer, pressing her head gently against Rumi's temple. Her mom will love you, Mira murmured. Rumi nodded, but it was more reflex than belief. Her eyes drifted back to Zoe. Zoe was crying now, not softly either. Her face had fully broken open, tears spilling down her cheeks while she kept talking anyway, still gesturing through it like she was determined to get every word out before she lost her nerve. Rumi's heart clenched so sharply that for a second she forgot her own panic entirely. Did something go wrong? What if her mom didn't understand? What if she was upset? What if Zoe was trying to explain, trying to defend them, trying to make it sound okay when her mother had already decided it wasn't? Rumi took a small step forward without meaning to. Mira's hand tightened around her waist. Wait, she whispered, gentle but firm. Rumi forced herself to stop. Across the crowd, Zoe's mom reached for Zoe again and pulled her into another hug. It was full and immediate. Her mom nodding against Zoe's shoulder as she held her. One hand cupped the back of Zoe's head, the other rubbing firm circles between her shoulder blades. Rumi exhaled shakily. Okay, maybe it didn't go bad. They stayed like that for a while, long enough that Rumi's anxiety had time to settle into something worse than panic. Anticipation. Her hands began to fidget uselessly at her sides. Zoe finally pulled back, wiping at her eyes with the heel of her hand. She said something to her mom, laughing through whatever tears were still clinging to her lashes. Her mom smiled. Then Zoe reached for her hand. Rumi's breath caught. Oh, oh God, they were coming here. To her. It's happening. Zoe started walking toward them with her mother's hands in hers, her face still damp but glowing in that open, earnest way that made Rumi's chest ache. She straightened immediately, pulling slightly away from Mira as her hands instinctively smoothed down her clothes, like that would somehow fix the sudden rush of anxiety. Do I look okay? Do I look okay? She asked quickly, her voice just a little too tight. What do I say? Is there. Fuck, I wish I did a little research on how you do something like this. She could feel it, could feel the way her chest tightened around each inhale, the way her thoughts started tripping over each other before they could become useful. Should she bow? Was that too formal? Should she introduce herself first? Should she thank her for raising Zoe? No, that sounded insane. What if she said it wrong? What if her voice cracked? What if Zoe's mom heard her and immediately knew she was nervous and felt bad, and then everyone felt bad because Rumi couldn't be normal for 5 consecutive seconds? Mira stepped in front of her, both hands coming up to grip Rumi's shoulders. Rumi, she said softly. Rumi's eyes snapped to hers. Mira held her gaze. Relax. It's okay. Rumi made a small, helpless sound. I am trying. I know, Mira said, and the patience in her voice made something in Rumi's chest tremble. Just breathe with me. Mira inhaled slowly. Rumi watched her for a second, still too caught in her own head. Then Mira did again, slower this time, exaggerating the movement just enough for Rumi to follow. So Rumi did. In, hold, out. That was scary. Her shoulders lowered a fraction. Mira squeezed them gently. Again. Rumi copied her again, forcing air into her lungs, even though it felt like there wasn't enough room for it. The crowd noise came back around her in pieces. The murmur of voices, someone laughing nearby, Zayden saying something under his breath to Zev, Zoe's footsteps getting closer. There you go, she murmured. Just be yourself. Rumi's mouth twisted faintly, nerves still buzzing beneath her skin. That is the part I'm worried about. Mira's expression softened, but before she could answer, Zoe's voice reached them, bright and thick with leftover tears. Okay, Zoe said. Okay, Zoe said, letting out a shaky little laugh as she came to a stop in front of them. So Rumi turned fully toward them. Rumi, she said, softer now, a small, almost careful smile forming. This is my mom. Mom, this is Rumi. Rumi blinked, her gaze shifting, really landing on her this time. The first thing she noticed was that she was tall, actually tall, tall enough that Rumi's first panicked, completely useless thought was, oh, so the tall jeans just skipped Zoe entirely. She had curly hair, threaded with a few strands of gray that didn't age her so much as soften her. Freckles dotted her cheeks and the bridge of her nose, softer than Zoe's, but familiar enough to make Rumi's heart squeeze, and her eyes, the same as Zoe's, the same color, that same depth, but here it felt quieter, more grounded, less restless, less openly sparkling, but warm in a way that made Rumi understand exactly where Zoe got it from. And those eyes were on her now. Rumi was suddenly hyper aware of everything, her posture, her hands, the way her gown sat slightly crooked on her shoulders. Zoe's mom smiled then, her eyes crinkling slightly at the corners, and the warmth in her face deepened all at once. It's lovely to meet you, Rumi, she said, holding out her hand. Rumi stared at it for half a second too long before her body finally remembered how to move. I'm going to change her voice later. Right, handshake. She could do that. She reached out and took her hand. It was warm, soft, comforting in a way Rumi hadn't expected, and it threw her off just enough that her brain lagged behind her mouth. Oh, Rumi's grip tightened just a little before she realized it and loosened it again, her voice stumbling over itself. It's a pleasure to meet you as well, Miss Puck. An honor, really, truly. The the second the words left her mouth, she wanted to fold herself into the floor. An honor? Really? Why does she sound like she was accepting an award? She could feel Mira beside her, and she knew Mira was trying not to laugh. But Miss Puck's face didn't shift into judgment. Instead, she laughed. And Rumi's embarrassment paused for half a second before this. Oh my God, again. And Rumi's embarrassment paused for half a second because the sound was so warm and melodic, it almost startled her. Mrs. Pucks is my mother, she said gently. Sorry, I need to find a voice for her. Mrs. Pucks is my mother, she said gently, her tone warm rather than correcting. I'd prefer if you called me Ma, if that's okay. Rumi froze. Her mouth parted slightly, closed, opened again. Ma? She wanted Rumi to call her Ma? Her brain short circuited for a second, the word echoing in a space that felt unfamiliar. But wasn't that too close? Too intimate? Too. Oh, yeah, I can totally do that. She said quickly, nodding like she was trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. Yes, yeah. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Zoe brighten, her smile going wide and immediate. And for a completely separate, equally unhelpful reason, Rumi briefly wondered if she was about to go blind. I hope my daughter has been treating you well, Ma continued. I'm sorry she didn't mention before that she was dating you too. I'm sorry my daughter didn't mention she was. Oh my god. Then, without warning, she reached over and pinched Zoe's cheek. Zoe immediately whined, her face scrunching. Mom! Rumi blinked. Somehow, seeing Zoe get scolded by her mom made her feel better and more nervous at the same time. You're embarrassing me, Zoe complained, trying to lean away without actually moving too far. And isn't it supposed to be the other way around? Aren't you supposed to ask if I'm being treated well? Ma simply rolled her eyes and patted Zoe's cheek like Zoe was being dramatic for no reason. I know you are, she said. I'm asking Rumi. Rumi stood there, caught somewhere between wanting to laugh and wanting to disappear, her grip tightening slightly at her sides. She forced herself to nod, words catching and then stumbling out anyway. Yeah, she really has, she said, her voice a little higher than usual. You have a very wonderful daughter, Miss Ma. She smiled. It felt a little crooked. Miss Ma? For one tiny second, Rumi wished the earth would open up beneath her and swallow her whole. Then Zoe's mom just burst into laughter, brighter this time, like Rumi had just handed her something precious without meaning to, one hand lifting to wipe at the corner of her eye. Oh, Zoe, Ma said, nudging Zoe hard enough in the side to make her stumble a little. She's adorable. I like her already. Rumi's face went hot. Adorable? She was going to pass away here, actually, right here in front of Zoe's entire family. Zoe rubbed her side with a pout, though her eyes were sparkling. Well, yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons I'm dating her. One of? Rumi repeated before she could stop herself. Zoe looked at her, grin widening. A very important one. Ma looked delighted by the entire exchange, which made Rumi feel both relieved and completely exposed. She wasn't being rejected. She was being politely tolerated. She wasn't being politely tolerated. The older woman was simply looking at her like she had already decided Rumi was something good. Rumi didn't know what to do with that. She gave her one more fond look before her attention shifted, gaze landing on Mira. A single eyebrow lifted. And don't think I forgot about you. And don't think I forgot about you, Mira. Mira, who had been suspiciously quiet beside Rumi, ducked her head with a small smile. Hi, Ma, she murmured, already stepping forward. Ma opened her arms without hesitation, and Mira walked right into the hug. Rumi watched as the older woman wrapped her up firmly, one hand smoothing over Mira's back in a way that looked practiced, familiar. After a beat, she pulled herself back from Mira, but kept one hand on her shoulder. You've gotten prettier, she said, giving Mira a once-over. Mira smiled faintly. You say that every time. And every time it's true. Zoe groaned. She is so cutie. Zoe groaned. Wow. Okay. So Mira gets compliments and I get cheek pinches? You get both, Zoe's mom said immediately, reaching out like she might pinch Zoe again, and Zoe dodged behind Rumi with a scandalized noise. Rumi stiffened when Zoe hid against her back, hands landing t- hands landing lightly on her waist. Ma's gaze flicked to them again. Well, she said, voice gentler now. Look at you three. Zoe's arms tightened faintly around Rumi's waist from behind. Mira glanced over at Rumi too, her expression soft. Rumi's heart thudded hard. Ma looked directly at her again. I'm glad I finally got to meet you. I'm glad I finally get to meet you, she said. Zoe was crying so much over there, I was starting to think you were a princess or something. Zoe made an offended sound behind Rumi. I was not crying that much. You absolutely were. I was emotional. You were leaking. Mira snorted. Rumi, despite herself, laughed. It came out small and breathy and still nervous around the edges, but it was real. Ma's face brightened like she had been waiting for that. There it is, she said warmly. Rumi blinked. What? That smile. Stacy tilted her head, almost proud of herself. Zoe talked about that. Wait, Stacy? Is that still mom? Wait, anyway. Zoe went still behind her. Mom, she said, but this time her voice was softer. Embarrassed, yes, but not upset. Rumi turned her head slightly, trying to look at Zoe over her shoulder. You talked about my smile? Zoe pressed her forehead briefly against Rumi's shoulder, hiding there. Maybe, she mumbled. Mira's eyes narrowed with immediate interest. How much did you talk about her smile? Zoe lifted her head fast. Okay, we don't need to interrogate me in front of my mother. They're so cute. Stacy, I think Stacy might be the mom. Stacy is the mom. Stacy is the mom. Yeah. This is wait, Rex, sorry. I saw you commenting, but I didn't want to stop. Rumi is Somi, yeah. Oh god, how to explain? Hi, Artie, just happened to be here, and hello, Sam, as well. I mean, to be fair, I didn't know what a poly relation was for certain, like, until till like 3 years ago. So I mean, I heard of it, but it took me a while. Also, oh god, Zoe, good girl, huh? Rumi, yes, one star. Oh, mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Sniffs at Happy Family. He finally feels like she has a family. I just hope nothing foreseen happens like most stories. I mean, this is like the finale, so I don't think anything crazy is gonna happen now. Knock on wood, I guess. I'm gonna see how long this section is because I might. Okay, I think I will read this section as well, and then I will stop for tonight. I don't know. Hearing Ma makes me think of Golden Girls so hard. I've not seen it. Miss Ma. Oh, hello, C. Surprise, surprise, lo and behold, Gino announced, holding his diploma up like it was some kind of rare artifact. We did it. You see this beauty right here? One of a kind right here. He tilted it toward all of them, making sure every single person had the chance to admire it. Mira didn't even blink. Whoa, she said flatly, her eyes widening in exaggerated disbelief as she leaned in to look at it. This might sound crazy, but just hear me out. I think, just maybe, everyone here might have gotten one too. That's just my opinion, though. Ginu laughed as he clutched the diploma to his chest like Mira had personally tried to take the shine off his moment. Wow, he said. I share my joy with my friends, and this is what I get? You've waved it in my face 3 times. I wanted you to appreciate history. I appreciated the first time. Didn't look like it. Before Mira could respond, Abby came charging in from the side and wrapped her arms around Mira's waist, lifting her slightly off the ground in a tight squeeze. No more school, Abby cheered. Mira let out a strained noise, her arms pinned awkwardly at her sides. More time for a job, yay, she gritted out, her voice muffled against Abby's shoulder. And put me down. Abby laughed into her shoulder. You sound so excited. I'm full of joy. Abby finally dropped her back down, still grinning as she patted Mira's shoulders like she had done something helpful instead of nearly cracking her ribs. We have to plan a trip somewhere. Abby's Abby, I think there's a typo. We have to plan a trip somewhere, Abby said, looking around at all of them. Like a real one, not one of those we should totally go somewhere things where nobody picks a date and then we all forget in 6 months. Ginu bumped into his shoulder with a grin. Mystery was saying we should go camping. Rumi blinked. Camping. The word settled in her head with a strange, quiet little spark. She had never been camping before, not really. She had seen it in shows, in videos, in the kind of soft, aesthetic pictures people posted online with tents lit from inside and mugs of hot chocolate held between sweater covered hands. But she knew the realistic version probably involved bugs and dirt and somebody complaining about sleeping on the ground. But still, hey, sleeping on the ground is goated. Sleeping on the ground is kind of the best thing ever, kind of. Sleeping in a sleeping bag will change your life. It sounded fun. Ooh, yes, Zoe said, already bouncing slightly on her heels. I can pretend we're stranded in the wilderness for days. Really commit to it. Practice my basic survival skills in case of an apocalypse happens. Mystery, you have to vlog it, Zoe added. For historical purposes, people need to see how we rebuilt society after the fall. Rumi smiled before she could stop herself. So we're really doing a camping trip? Mira hummed, looking between them like she was trying very hard to sound neutral. Abby immediately pointed at her. You're interested. I didn't say that. You did with your face. My face said nothing. Your face said s'mores. Mira's mouth opened, then closed. Abby leaned closer, eyes going dreamy. Oh God, Mira, I can taste your s'mores already. Mira groaned, dragging a hand down her face. Don't remind me. Now I actually want them. Zoe gasped. Wait, Mira making fancy s'mores by a campfire? I never said fancy. You don't know how not to be fancy. That's unfortunately true, Ginu said. Rumi laughed quietly, watching them bicker over a trip that hadn't even been planned yet. Her eyes drifted over them one by one. Ginu, still grinning behind his diploma, Abby, bright and loud and already half planning chaos, Mystery, silent but present, phone in hand, catching moments the rest of them might forget. Mira pretending to be annoyed while her mouth kept threatening to smile. Zoe glowing in the middle of them, her eyes still a little red from earlier, but her happiness spilling out everywhere anyway. Rumi's throat tightened. She wondered if this was what people meant when they talked about after school, after grief, after everything that had hurt so badly she once thought nothing could exist beyond it. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't. Rumi knew better than that. There were still days where the past found her by the throat. There were still moments where her body remembered fear before her mind could catch up. There were still names and smells and silences that could knock the air clean out of her. But there was also this sunlight on graduation robes, diplomas clutched in their hands, Zoe's laugh, Mira's shoulder brushing hers, a camping trip being born out of absolutely nothing except Abby saying they should go somewhere and everyone deciding somehow that yes, of course they should. A future, small, silly, loud, warm, hers. Group picture, guys? Sorry, that's Mystery. Group picture, guys? Mystery's voice cut through the chatter as he lifted his phone, already stepping back slightly to get the angle. Rumi perked up immediately. Yes! Zoe turned toward her, nudging her lightly with a smile. That was fast. I like pictures, Rumi said, then glanced at Rumi's phone and felt her face warm slightly. And I want one of all of us. Then we're taking the best one, Zoe declared, clapping her hands once. Everybody in. No weird spacing. I want emotional closeness. Do not direct my body, Mira muttered, even as she moved closer. You love being directed by me. Mira gave her a look. Zoe's smile turned wicked. In group pictures. Good save, Abby said. It was not a save. It was not a save. It was always about pictures. Sure. Mystery stepped back, holding the phone up and handling it carefully. They all started bunching around him, a messy shuffle of robes, shoulders, elbows, and laughter. Ginu squeezed in beside Rumi, lifting his diploma high enough that it nearly blocked half her face. Ginu, she said, laughing as she pushed it down. This diploma deserves visibility. So do I. Mira slipped in on Rumi's other side, her arm brushing against Rumi's back before settling around her waist. The touch was light, barely there, but Rumi leaned into it without thinking. Zoe squeezed herself between Rumi and Abby with absolutely no shame, looping an arm around Rumi's shoulders while still trying to make sure Mira stayed close. You're crushing me, Mira said. Zoe beamed. You love it. Rumi felt Zoe's cheek press briefly against the side of her head, warm and familiar, and something in her chest went dangerously soft. For a second, she forgot about the camera. She forgot to worry about how her smile looked, whether her hair was sitting right, whether she was standing awkwardly, whether she looked like she belonged. Because Zoe's arm was around her, and Mira's hand was steady at her waist, and Chinu was bumping her shoulder, and Abby was laughing at something he said, and Mystery was holding the phone up like this moment mattered enough to keep. Rumi looked at the screen and saw all of them reflected back, crowded together, messy, happy. Her heart gave a small, painful squeeze. Oh, she was going to want to remember this forever. Mystery adjusted the angle one more time. Okay, ready? Zoe immediately lifted her chin. Everyone say something other than cheese. That's too much pressure. That's too much pressure, Zayden said. Say diploma, Ginu suggested. No, Mira said. Say unemployment, Abby said brightly. Zoe laughed, loud and delighted, and Rumi couldn't help laughing too. Mystery counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. Unemployment! Abby shouted. Camping! Zoe yelled at the same time. Diploma! Ginu insisted. Please stop, Mira said, smiling despite herself. Rumi didn't say anything in time. She was too busy laughing. The picture took right then. When Mystery turned the phone around to show them, everyone crowded in again. Zoe made a sound so soft it almost got lost under everyone else's reactions. Oh, she said, that's perfect. Rumi stared at the photo. It wasn't perfect, not technically. Someone was blinking in the background. Ginu's diploma cut off part of her hair. Abby was slightly blurred from moving. Mystery's angle was a little crooked, but Rumi looked at it and felt her chest fill up so quickly it almost hurt because she looked happy. Not posed, not careful. Unemployment is crazy. Not posed, not careful, not trying to make herself smaller. Just happy. Mira's hand brushed against hers. You okay? She asked quietly. Rumi nodded, still looking at the picture. Yeah, she said, her voice soft. Then, after a second, she smiled. I just really want a copy. And that's where we're gonna stop, okay? Let's put that over here in my notes. They're so cute. I should have screamed unemployment in my college pictures. Dang. Okay, we're gonna end it there. I know I wonder what this world's version of Romance and Baby are doing. Who knows? Who knows? Oh my god. Don't fall, Pleek. Don't fall. Take your time, Artie. Thank you. Well, yes. But I hope to find something like this someday. Mm. Hello. Now we're full screen. Baby graduated online. I would say you'll never catch me unemployed, but I was unemployed all winter. Hi, Reef. Wait, you graduated online, Toss? Baby graduated online? Hey. I graduated from high school online. Baby graduated, baby the character. I was like, Toss, you graduated online? Baby the character graduated online. I see, I see. I was like, baby graduated online. What was baby? Oh my god, my brain is so fried. Things in both theories, not what I am doing. I see, I see, I see. Yeah, my throat is pretty tired, not gonna lie. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm going to let me go and choose a song. Era me, I'm the baby guys here in K-pop Demon too. Listen, I think it would be fair if someone referred to themselves as baby. I refer to myself as girly all the time. Girly graduated online from high school. Oh my god. Sorry, I pulled up Spotify and it was open to someone's profile. Anyway, okay. Yeah. YouTube, thank you for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. Oh, that's awesome, Dane. I didn't see you in chat, but I guess you were just hanging around. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. EST. It'll be earlier because we're watching Interview with a Vampire at we're watching Interview with the Vampire, the series with friends. So it'll be earlier. So bye YouTube. I'll see you tomorrow. It'll be at 4 p.m. PST tomorrow. 4 p.m. EST, not PST. EST tomorrow. Yes.